The story kicks off with some guys trying to collect a debt from our main character. Furious, the boy shouts that his parents died mining for them, so if anything, he's the one who should be compensated. Someone then tells him that if he awakens, it would bring hope to everyone, even if the chances are slim to none. The young man yells back, wondering why they don't try it themselves, since the chance of awakening is only 1 in 1,000. Apparently, the experiment leaves him on the brink of death. Dragging himself across the floor, he wonders if this is really where he's going to die. Just then, a bizarre, shadowy creature emerges from the darkness. Without a second thought, the creature lunges forward and strikes him with a fatal blow. He then wonders if this is his fate, all because he's weak, and he questions whoever decided that the weak are the ones who have to die. Lying on the ground, a dark energy begins to envelop him, and that's when our beloved system finally appears. The scene then shifts, and we find out the young man's name is Li Yi. He works as an operator who travels to other dimensions to mine for resources. His supervisor congratulates him on his work that month, telling him he'll finally be able to pay off his parents' debt. Our hero forces a smile and says that if he keeps this up, he might even be able to buy an apartment soon. But on the inside, he's furious and plans to get out of there the second that debt is paid off. It's explained that the radiation in these other dimensions gives you a 1 in 1,000 chance to awaken special powers, but it's also lethal. It's the kind of job nobody would ever choose willingly. Then, 2 men start talking about our protagonist and his parents' story. One of them comments that the company blamed the boy's parents for a huge loss and calls him weak. The other man then says that if it were him, he'd risk it all to make the company pay for what happened. Our hero overhears the entire conversation and is outraged by what he just heard about being weak. He reflects that sometimes someone becomes weak not through their own fault, but because the world itself has gone mad. Arriving at the cave entrance, the supervisor announces that everything is ready and it's time to get to work. Suddenly, the ground starts to shake and one of the miners panics, thinking it's a cave-in. But the supervisor scolds him, saying it's just a minor tremor. The other workers are confused, as they've never heard of tremors here, and wonder if it could be monsters. At that, everyone gets scared, saying the place is too dangerous because it was once inhabited by aliens. With that, the supervisor tells everyone to shut up, stating that the zone was cleared 3 years ago. But before he can finish, a creature emerges and attacks him by surprise. Seeing that, everyone is left completely in shock. And facing that enormous creature, our boy is paralyzed with fear. The supervisor, on the ground and barely conscious, manages to say that it's an alien. Everyone starts running for their lives, and chaos erupts as the monsters begin to attack everyone. Li Yi realizes they are more than 10 kilometers from the dimensional rift's exit. He questions if there's even any point in trying to escape. One of the men is thrown right toward our protagonist, and he gets hit head-on, sending our guy flying hard against a rock. Barely conscious, our protagonist tries to recover. A few miners manage to climb onto a truck and scream for the driver to floor it. Vehicle starts to pull away, leaving Li Yi behind as he begs them to take him along. But a giant creature leaps onto the truck. The 2 men inside start to panic. The creature then demolishes the truck and captures the miners. Li Yi notices that the monsters are focusing their attacks on the people who were in the vehicle. A moment later, the truck explodes in a giant fireball, destroying everything around it. Our protagonist is shocked by the scene and puts a hand on his helmet to shield himself. Amidst the flames, the creatures seem to be in pain and begin to scream in agony. Watching the monsters' reaction, the young man realizes their weakness might be fire. He then glances at some torches on the ground and decides the idea is worth a shot. But another creature suddenly appears to his right, ready to strike with its claws. The young man quickly dodges the monster's attack and rushes to grab one of the torches. He quickly snatches a torch from the ground, and then turns to face the monster. He starts waving the torch at the creature, telling it to get lost. And just as he thought, the creatures are paralyzed with fear in the face of the flames. Seeing this, he shouts for everyone to hear that these monsters are afraid of fire. It's revealed that 10 years ago, portals appeared and insects, beasts, and aliens invaded Earth. Only the advanced awakeners, powered by radiation, had the strength to fight these monsters. The emergence of these heroes allowed humanity to close the portals and explore new energy sources. But these guys are just normal people, and just surviving in this world takes everything they have. With that in mind, the young man yells for everyone to gather as much flammable material as they can find. One of the older workers notices with concern that his torch won't last much longer. So, our hero gets the idea to use the gasoline from the storage depot to block the entrance with fire. He tells everyone to form a circle, back to back, and slowly retreat into the cave. The plan works, and they manage to retreat safely. Once inside, the young man yells for them to pour the gasoline at the entrance as quickly as possible. The other workers quickly start tipping the barrels and spreading gasoline all over the ground. After the gasoline is spread, he orders everyone to throw their torches. One of the torches lands just as a monster was approaching. This creates a massive wall of fire at the cave's entrance, hitting one of the creatures head-on. One of the men approaches and thanks Li Yi for saving everyone. He says that if it weren't for him, they'd all be dead, and they promise to help him if he ever needs anything in the future. Our hero then notices something in the back of the cave, and he points to a giant statue on top of a truck. The old man explains that the statue was found in the mine, and the supervisor was planning to sell it on the black market. Li Yi starts to analyze the statue while one of the workers manages to get a signal on the radio. With that, he reports that they were attacked by aliens in the Sector 7 mine and need reinforcements. But the voice on the radio says that the rescue team will only arrive in about 2 hours, sending everyone into a panic. Desperate, one of the miners asks if they can't come any faster but gets no response. The radio goes silent, and a hush falls over the cave. The desperation grows as their suit's power will only last another hour and a half. Our protagonist stands in silence, staring at his suit's energy gauge. He then realizes they really don't have much time left. Suddenly, one of the men gets everyone's attention and asks them to listen for a second. He claims their power won't last, and in a situation like this, someone needs to sacrifice themselves for the group. So he suggests that the old or the orphans, like our protagonist, should be the ones to be sacrificed. The man approaches Li Yi, saying he has no ties and is deep in debt, so living is just suffering for him. The man then demands the battery from our hero's suit, who is furious at his audacity. He then attacks our boy, mocking his attempt to resist. Down on the ground, the young man is surrounded by the scumbags. They hold him down and take off his helmet, saying the radiation might even awaken his powers. Without his helmet, the young man glares at them and swears that if he awakens, the first thing he'll do is finish them all. One of them laughs at the slim chance of awakening and grabs the battery while our hero coughs helplessly on the ground. With the battery in hand, the group of aggressors now looks for their next victim. Panic spreads, and they begin to sacrifice innocent people. One of the victims starts to run away, and manages to climb into the truck's cabin while the others scream for him to stop immediately. Inside the truck, he yells with a crazed look in his eyes that if he's going to die, then everyone is going to die together. With that, he starts the vehicle and begins driving straight towards the fire barricade, knocking the statue to the ground. With the fire extinguished, the aliens can now enter, and everyone screams in desperation to get out of there. Lying on the ground, our boy wonders why that statue is smiling, and if even it is mocking him. Suddenly, an alien steps on the statue, shattering it. And facing the monster, the young man wonders why he has to go through all of this. On the verge of death, he laments his endless suffering. The monster then strikes him with a direct hit as he questions why he's so weak. In that moment, he has a flashback of all the people who have humiliated him in the past, and he remembers the day he tried to sue the company for his parents' death. One of the men throws the complaint letters in his face. They blamed his parents for the accident and even forced him to pay for the damages, and says he should have just accepted the small compensation, and that the debt is now his, and it will have enormous interest. The man then says the only way to pay it all back is by becoming a dimensional miner. Back in the present, Li Yi grabs the creature's arm, thinking that even if he dies, he won't make it easy for it. And as he bites the monster, he thinks it doesn't matter if he's weak, because no one ever said the weak should just accept death. Despite his determination, the creature throws him away with ease. Completely wounded on the ground, he thinks the smell of that creature is disgusting. A shadowy figure then appears and mocks him, saying his struggle was useless. Even all beaten up, the young man doesn't give in and yells that at least he managed to bite the monster. The figure then says it can save him, but to do so, he must surrender his body. But our hero refuses on the spot, shouting that he'd rather die than be controlled by some freak. The shadowy creature starts laughing in his face, tauntingly asking if he really prefers to die with pride. It then calls him a fool, and the shadow system is forcibly activated. The nearby monster turns around, sensing the dark energy. With his body now possessed by the figure, the young man lunges forward and attacks the alien. He angrily asks if the one who just stepped on his statue was a mere ant like it. He then stomps down hard, saying he's a very vengeful guy. The monster roars in anger, but our hero just stands there calmly. The beast then charges straight for the protagonist, but the protagonist traps the creature with his shadows and with a look of superiority tells it to stay down. With a scream of pain, the creature is thrown hard against the wall. The monster then dissolves, leaving behind a sphere of dark energy. Looking at the shadow on the ground, he comments again on the disgusting smell. Now, he turns to the other workers and calls them trash, while one of them threatens him. The shadow entity then wonders what the pathetic human would do if he gave back control. Trapped by the shadows, the workers beg him to let them go, claiming they just wanted to survive. One of them tries to justify their actions, saying that without them, the boy would never have known he could become an awakened. At this, our hero sarcastically asks if he should be thanking them all now. Relieved, one of the men says there's no need to thank them and asks him to just pretend nothing happened. With a malicious smile, he says he's not going to let them go, and in fact, he's even going to give them a little help. Suddenly, one of his shadows lunges forward and rips off one of the men's helmets. The workers then spit up blood and stare at him in complete terror. The last two survivors beg for their lives, saying they did nothing wrong. He then tosses them the batteries from the men he defeated and says they're theirs now. The shadow entity then appears and tells our hero to stop with this useless pity, and warns him that this pointless mercy will only drag him into more trouble in the future. But the boy tells the entity to shut up, saying he wants to see if the miners are still so tough on the brink of death. As soon as he leaves the cave, our hero comes face to face with an army of aliens. The entity is surprised by so many monsters and gives him two options: fight alone or surrender his body. And it taunts him, telling him to think carefully, because without its power, he's nothing. The young man ignores it and leaps over a monster, yelling that he doesn't need its advice, and he begins to dodge the creature's attacks. He then blocks a monster's attack but is sent flying. The alien then tries to attack our hero from behind. However, the protagonist was ready, and he dodges the creature's attack. He then realizes that his reaction time and speed have improved significantly. The shadow entity taunts him, saying that even with the system, his power is pathetic. Furious, our hero clenches his fists and yells for the creature to shut its mouth, and with one punch, he sends it flying. He wonders why his power suddenly increased so much. but he realizes that with just his body, he won't be able to do enough damage to them. Wishing for a weapon, a dark energy materializes in his hand. From it, a dagger forms, and he wonders if it's made of shadows. With his new weapon, he charges forward to test its power against the monster. And with a swift strike, he easily manages to wound the creature. With a smile on his face, he realizes that now he can kill aliens too. The young man then questions if he has already become an advanced awakened. He then blocks an attack from one of the monsters with his new dagger, and with a quick movement, he slices the creature in half without any trouble. Even surrounded by several aliens, he shows no fear. With that, he shouts that he finally has the power to fight and charges forward. After the battle, he collapses to the ground, exhausted but laughing with joy. Lying amidst the monsters, he was completely wiped out, and the system then notifies him that he has advanced to rank E. The scene then shifts to a hospital, where a doctor explains that the young man is exhausted and needs to adapt to his new level. The nurse is thrilled that he's an advanced awakened, but the doctor tells her to calm down. The doctor then leaves, but the nurse stays to admire him as a mysterious shadow appears by his side. The entity complains about being trapped in a weak human body but finds it interesting that he used its power right from the start. Our hero suddenly wakes up, comes face to face with the shadowy figure again, and asks what it wants with him. It then introduces itself as the ruler of all dimensions and demands that the young man surrender his body to it. The young man scoffs at the creature, calling it an ugly cockroach and saying he would never give his body to it. Annoyed, the entity says his only value is to offer his body and threatens him to obey. Confused, he starts having all sorts of strange thoughts, wondering if the creature has a crush on him. The young man becomes super paranoid, thinking about all the bad things that could happen if he angers the creature. The shadowy figure gets tired of the boy's absurd thoughts and yells at him to stop. It then complains that if the situation weren't so desperate, it would have chosen even an old dog over him. With that, it gives him an ultimatum saying that if he doesn't reach rank D in 3 days, it will erase him from existence. The young man is then teleported to a cave, and the entity explains that it's an insect nest for his test. It's explained that the test can only be done once, and the young man realizes the possession reset his attempt. A giant beetle then emerges. With his dagger in hand, the young man prepares to fight the enormous insect. The creature attacks him with incredible speed, but he manages to defend himself with his dagger. The monster then lets out a terrifying roar. The boy realizes the creature's blind spot is on its back and leaps to attack. But his attack doesn't work, and the dagger ricochets off the beast's hard shell, and he lands on the ground, preparing for the next attack. With that, the beetle seizes the opening and hits him with a powerful blow. Even so, he manages to recover and stabs his dagger into the ground to keep from being thrown back. Facing the monster, he complains that its shell is too hard and his attacks are useless. The entity mocks him, but the young man yells that it's none of its business, and it warns him not to ask for help later. The young man keeps attacking relentlessly, wondering if this beast has any weak points. The creature hits him, sending our boy flying, throwing him forcefully against the cave wall. Lying on the ground, the entity calls him weak as the beetle spits a green goo on him. The beetle roars at him, but the young man realizes the green goo is actually the creature's blood. With a confident smile, he realizes he's finally found the monster's weakness. The creature then charges furiously towards him to attack with all its might, but the young man is unfazed and says he's about to show who the real weakling is here. The shadow entity is surprised to see his eye glowing and wonders if that's the eye of the shadow. With his new power, he manages to break one of the beetle's legs with a single strike. The creature taunts him, but the young man explains that with one less leg, it's much easier to hit its weak spot, and the beetle then begins to retreat. The boy then decides he needs a more effective weapon to finish off the beast. With that, his dagger transforms into a spear, and he says this is exactly what he needed. He then uses his new weapon and strikes the creature in the abdomen, launching the monster into the air, and then lands a direct thrust, revealing that the monster's weak point was its abdomen. Tired, he leans on the spear while the entity taunts him for being exhausted after a single fight. The young man feels a power coming from the crystal on the ground, and the system informs him of his progress toward rank D. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise and senses something approaching but can't see anything. The shadow entity then appears and advises him to use the Eye of the Shadow, but the young man doesn't know what that skill is, and then lands a direct thrust, revealing that the monster's weak point was its abdomen. Then his eye begins to glow with purple energy, and he successfully activates the Eye of the Shadow. With his new vision, he can see another insect shooting poisonous thorns in his direction. The young man then dodges the projectiles with a leap. The thorn embeds itself in the wall, and he realizes it's some kind of wood covered in poison. The young man is surprised by the speed of the attacks and wonders what these things are. But before he can react, he's hit by more thorns in the back. Using all his agility, he manages to dodge another attack at the last second. He gets frustrated for not being able to see them clearly, and the entity explains it's because he's still too weak. Determined, he decides to gather even more energy into his eyes. The shadow creature observes, finding it interesting how a mere rank E can manipulate energy so well. With his power boosted, he can finally see and identify the insects. But suddenly, he notices something strange and tenses up when he sees that number. He remembers a human saying that when you see one cockroach, it means the place is already infested. With that, the horde of insects charges straight at him. The young man then retreats to a better position to avoid being surrounded by the monsters. With his daggers in hand, he prepares to face the insect horde. He releases a wave of dark energy and yells for the monsters to back off. The shadow entity is surprised as he has awakened the second phase of the Eye of the Shadow, and the system notifies him that his Eye of the Shadow has evolved to level 2. With this, his new skills are now Knowledge Base and Shadow Metamorphosis. His new power reveals the insect's weak points with purple flames. He now sees that all the monsters have a weak spot on their bellies. He then uses a new ability and giant shadow spikes erupt from the ground. Absorbing the crystals, he realizes that each insect only gives a small amount of progress. But now that he knows their weak points, he decides to end this quickly. With his insane speed, he defeats the monsters and is amazed by the power of his ability. Suddenly, something attacks him from the side, and the entity mocks that his reaction was fast, but his brain didn't keep up. Even though he was hit, he clearly saw that it was a saber worm that attacked him. To deal with the monster, he transforms his shadow dagger into a whip. With his new weapon, he manages to lasso the creature in midair and says, "Gotcha." He then pulls the monster in and slices it in half. At that moment, the other thorn-shooting insects resume their attack. Seeing the shooter insects, he comments that they really like to throw things. With his whips, he blocks the attacks and challenges them to try shooting without their rears. He then uses his whips to pull the flying monsters down to the ground, and with that, he traps them all with his whips and defeats them in one fell swoop. Watching the fight, the shadow entity thinks that he's finally starting to look worthy of it. It's explained that the Eye of the Shadow enhances his senses, strength, and control over shadows. But the power comes at a price, consuming an immense amount of the user's mental energy. Because of this, his vision starts to get blurry. An insect hits him in the face, and he thinks that he can't fall here after finally getting the power for his revenge. Even wounded, he gets up, determined to continue, and we see there are still 15 hours left in the test. He then remembers the scumbags from the NG group who made him suffer. Angrily, he thinks about how they hid the truth about his parents and forced him to pay a debt. While fighting the insects, he wonders if all of this happened just because he was an ordinary person. But now that he has the power to change everything, he won't give up and swears he will have his revenge. He then promises he will drag every single one of those arrogant bastards to hell. Sitting on a throne of insects, he vows to make them kneel and repent at his parents' graves. The shadow entity comments that human hatred is surprisingly compatible with the shadow system. The entity questions him for releasing all his energy at once, but he just wants to get stronger. In the final second, he decides to bet everything he has to defeat the remaining monsters. He then leaps and unleashes a massive explosion of shadow energy against the insects. With the final attack, he manages to reach 100% and is promoted to level D. Exhausted, he breathes a sigh of relief for having made it just in time. The young man then notices a giant weapon on the ground, and the creature explains it's a level A dagger. Holding the enormous sword, he asks if the entity's people are all giants. The entity boasts that compared to its power, weapons are nothing, but the young man ignores it and absorbs everything. The creature suggests another use for the sword, but the boy decides to sell it, and a portal opens. He then explains that only level D awakeners can sell equipment, and his first stop will be the registration hall. Arriving there, everyone is shocked to find out he was classified as level E. The evaluator explains that although his stats are good, there's no energy fluctuation in his body. The young man is shocked to see that as a level E, he'll only receive a 15% raise in his salary. The entity then explains that humans can't detect shadow energy. With that, the young man thinks that not being detected could be a good thing, but it makes selling equipment difficult. He then decides to go to the black market, a perfect place for the shadow system. Arriving there, two men comment that it's rare to see a miner in that place. The creature scoffs at the human weapons and suddenly feels pity for them for being so weak. One of the vendors tells him to leave, saying he can't afford to pay if he gets anything dirty. The man mocks his appearance and asks what a poor guy like him could possibly buy there. The young man then pulls out the giant sword and tells the vendor to call an appraiser. The vendor is in shock, and someone asks if he's an advanced level D awakened. We see a level D man named Zhou Huo and a woman named Su Qing, who is complaining about the smelly place. With that, the vendor recognizes him as young Master Zhou, and he says he wants to sell a sword to buy a car for his girlfriend. Showing off the Windhowl sword, the vendor is impressed and says it's a top-tier item for a level D. At that moment, our hero recognizes the woman as Su Qing, and she's shocked to see him there. A flashback shows her humiliating him for being an indebted loser and telling him to stop looking for her. Her boyfriend then asks if she knows him, but the woman denies it, saying he must be just a fan. The man then mocks our hero, calling him trash and saying the standards of the place are dropping. He continues with the insults and goes after our protagonist, telling him to take his junk and get lost. Without a second thought, the man lunges forward and attacks our protagonist with his sword. But to his surprise, our boy blocks the attack with ease, and his sword shatters into pieces. Our hero approaches the scumbag and says that his weapon was the real piece of junk. The woman is desperate and asks how that could have happened since the sword was supposed to be super strong. Enraged, the jerk gets up and charges toward our boy. But without any effort, our protagonist dodges and thinks that he's way too slow. Even so, the man tries to attack with his other hand, admitting the young man's skills aren't half bad. With that, the scumbag prepares to attack again, but our boy dodges every single attack. He then reflects that the aggressor's attacks are much slower than the tests in the insect nest. The attacker is confused because he remembers the young man is just a miner who isn't even rank E. Despite being rank D, the man is frustrated that he can't land a single hit. With that, a shadow envelops the attacker's fist, holding him in place. The aggressor then yells that a miner should crawl back to the mine. With a mocking smile, he asks if a dog shouldn't crawl back to the surface. Without wasting any time, he yanks the shadow whip with all his might. With that, the aggressor is pulled violently and completely loses his balance. The woman then runs to help her boyfriend, who is kneeling on the ground, utterly defeated. With a look of superiority, the young man says it seems Mr. Zhou enjoys being a dog. Completely humiliated, the man charges again, yelling if our hero is tired of living. Suddenly, a voice tells everyone to stop, and a group of men appears at the door, surprising everyone. The man, who is Supervisor Wang of rank D, scolds the young master for fighting in his shop. The woman points at our hero and blames him for the fight, claiming he broke her boyfriend's sword. The supervisor is surprised and wonders how a simple miner could have done that. With that, he turns to the young master and asks if his weapon was really broken by that sword. Our protagonist then smiles and says the other guy attacked first, so if the sword broke, it's not his fault. The shop owner then glares at the aggressor and asks if that's true, leaving the young man flustered. The two exchange a knowing glance, and the supervisor says the boy's sword doesn't look ordinary, so they strike a deal. The boss then offers to mediate the situation since the young master trusts him. With that, he asks to take a look at the sword, and our hero hands it over without hesitation. But upon holding the weapon, he's completely shocked by its weight. He then thinks that the sword weighs over 100 pounds and wonders if the young man is an advanced awakened. The man then decides to test him and asks where a simple miner got a weapon like that. Our hero then glares at him and asks, since when the black market cares about the origin of items. The supervisor says it's just curiosity, but inside, the young man realizes he's trying to probe him. He then says he found it while mining, and the shop owner is convinced he's just an ordinary miner. The man then appraises the sword and says it's worth a few hundred at most, while the other one was worth over 2 million. The supervisor then proposes a deal where he buys the boy's sword and the young man pays the rest of the debt. With a fake smile, he says this is his good deed of the day and asks what the other thinks. The aggressor accepts, but the woman complains that the miner has no way to pay the promised 2 million. The man then whispers to her not to worry, as they can sell the boy's organs. Our hero overhears everything and says they seem to have a well-thought-out plan as a henchman glares at him. With his eye glowing, the protagonist says that the one with a problem here isn't just him, and dark energy explodes around him. The boss then orders his henchmen to cripple the boy without hesitation. Seeing the fight start, the supervisor decides to go to the tea room with the couple to wait for the outcome. Suddenly, one of the henchmen is thrown hard against the wall. The shop owner yells at his man to be careful not to break any merchandise. Our protagonist defeats the henchman easily. The aggressor is shocked to see his men being defeated so easily. Angrily, he kicks one of the henchmen. The young man then glares at him with a cold look and says it's his turn now. The man admits the young man's moves aren't bad, but he's no match for an advanced awakened. With that, he charges forward with an energized attack. But our protagonist isn't intimidated. However, our boy just raises his hand and hits him square on, sending him flying. Furious, he yells that not even his own father dared to hit him and prepares a powerful attack to finish the young man. Our hero then uses his dark energy to block the attack at the last second. The aggressor is shocked to see his blow being stopped by an invisible wall. The young man then approaches and says that since his father didn't teach him, he will give him a lesson. He then uses his ability and traps the aggressor and his girlfriend with shadow spider webs. The man yells that he's not a miner and asks if he's a rank C or B awakened. With a mocking smile, the young man says he's just a rank E miner certified by the guild. The man begs him to wait and reveals that he's a member of the Black Panther gang. Our hero then remembers that the Black Panther gang is famous for loan sharking. Without caring about the threats, he attacks the man with a series of punches and kicks. With one final powerful blow, he throws the couple far away. Lying on the ground, the man spits blood, completely defeated and humiliated. With a cold look, our hero says the thing he hates most are loan sharks like them. The supervisor tries to attack the young man from behind, but is easily repelled by our boy. The aggressor then gets desperate and tries to bribe him with 100,000 yuan to leave them alone. The young man then humiliates him and forces him to raise the offer until it reaches 1 million yuan. He then suspends him in the air and says he's going to teach him about interest, and that the slaps were just the beginning. Desperate, the man offers his VIP card with 5 million and swears it's all he has. The young man then notices the card is from the NG group and comes up with a plan to lure out his real enemies. With that, he takes the money and says he's just taking back what was stolen from him. The woman helps her boyfriend up and asks why he didn't tell her the young man was so strong. Angrily, he blames her, saying that if he had known, he wouldn't have let his guard down. He then calls someone and says his money isn't so easy to take. Across the city, we see a mysterious man who appears to be the gang's leader. The aggressor asks for help and lies that someone stole the sword he was going to offer, and even threatened the gang. A man asks his boss what to do with the targets, but the leader says he doesn't see anyone there. With a cruel smile, one of the henchmen uses his energy wires to finish off the targets. The boss says that the young man mentioned by Zhou is now their problem, and it doesn't matter if he lives or dies. Meanwhile, our hero returns to the Awakeners Guild and an employee approaches him. Revealing his face, he says he's an advanced rank E and is looking for a mission for his level. Two men mock him, calling him trash and saying the missions here are for rank D at a minimum. A woman also humiliates him, saying that rank E Awakeners are like parasites who live by begging. Employee tells him to wait outside, and someone says that trash should stick with trash. He checks his phone and sees the loan sharks took the 5 million, thinking he needs a mission urgently. Suddenly, a high-heeled boot catches everyone's attention and the room falls silent. The same people who humiliated him are now scared and surprised by the newcomer's presence. A powerful aura fills the room, and everyone realizes she is a rank B awakened. We see a woman with white hair and fox ears who exudes an intimidating energy. People wonder what a rank B would be doing there, while our hero watches from a distance. With his eye of the shadow, he notes that despite her aura, she looks like a rich girl, and he doesn't sense any killing intent. A man then announces a rank D mission for minors in the Beast's Abyss. People are shocked that the ranky boy wasn't affected by the aura, and even took a step forward. With a confident smile, he realizes he's the only one who can move there. The white-haired woman becomes interested, and the employee tries to offer other awakeners, but she cuts him off and points to our hero, saying she'll take him on the mission. The employee complains that the young man is late and hasn't registered, which is against the rules. With an intimidating glare, the lady says that she is the rules, and the employee gets scared. As they leave, someone comments that it's the first time Miss Chin has chosen someone personally. Once on the mission, a minotaur attacks with ferocity, showcasing the strength of the monsters in that place. We see the team with warriors, support, and damage dealers, a well-balanced group. The team fights against the minotaurs and manages to defend well against the creature's attacks. Watching the fight, he thinks that with a rank B leading, everything seems to be going well. But suddenly, his Eye of the Shadow activates, and he senses something is wrong in the cave. Looking into the abyss, he notices a giant horde of minotaurs that the others haven't seen. The entity explains that his perception is superior, and he thinks the rich girl should have noticed. He wonders if the white-haired lady has already sensed the danger but is hiding it for some reason. One of the team members informs the leader that the crystal vein they're looking for is just ahead. The girl calls him to go with her, and he questions why she would take him to such a dangerous place. As he follows her, he wonders if she doesn't care about the lives of others or if she's just too confident in her own power. Suddenly, the ground trembles, and rocks start to fall, and he tries to warn the girl about the danger. With agility, the two manage to dodge the debris and land safely on the ground. He then stares into the darkness of the cave with a serious expression. A giant rank D minotaur emerges, roaring in front of them, ready to attack. He thinks the rank B is finally going to fight as a pink aura envelops the girl. The lady then draws her sword, and her energy explodes as she prepares for battle. But to everyone's surprise, she looks nervous and starts to break into a cold sweat in front of the monster. The girl then hides behind him and tells the miner to go fight while she provides cover. The lady falls to the ground in embarrassment, and he complains that he's not fighting since she's the rank B here. Desperate and crying, she offers him $1 million to defeat the monsters. Seeing the girl on the ground, he sighs and says he'll only fight because of the money. With a smile, he decides to force himself to fight, and his eyes glow with shadow energy. Then, 2 shadow blades appear in his hands, and he prepares for battle. 3 minotaurs charge at full speed, but our hero is unfazed and challenges them. He then dodges their attacks with agility and prepares to counterattack the creatures. One of the monsters charges toward the girl, and the protagonist gets worried about his wallet. Suddenly, an explosion of red energy protects her and sends the minotaur flying. The young man is surprised and admits he misjudged her, as she has a powerful attack. But another monster takes advantage of the distraction and leaps to attack the lady with an aerial strike. At that moment, our protagonist summons his giant shadow sword to protect her. With a powerful blow, he deflects the creature's attack and throws it to the side. With a smile, he asks Miss Chin if her face attracts the hatred of monsters. The girl panics and runs away, leaving our hero alone with the beasts. He then uses his shadow threads to restrain the minotaurs and calls her a lost cause. Meanwhile, the lady continues to run desperately away from the fight, panting. She stops to catch her breath, thinking she's safe, but a minotaur appears right behind her. The girl is completely panicked upon seeing the giant creature standing in front of her. Staring at the monster, she wonders why the beast isn't afraid of her. Without hesitation, the creature raises its axe in a fury, ready to crush her. Observing the scene, our hero finds it strange, as she clearly has the power to fight. Desperate, the lady screams, and a bracelet on her arm begins to glow intensely. With that, a huge energy shield appears around the lady. The monster is then thrown back violently, and our protagonist watches the scene unfold. But the bracelet on her arm shatters into pieces, and she seems to be in pain. He then realizes that it was a protective amulet and not her real power. The young man approaches and asks if she's a non-combat type awakened. The lady asks him to keep it a secret, but the young man says that'll cost extra. Suddenly, the other minotaurs surround her, and he wonders why they are only attacking her. With that, his level 2 Eye of the Shadow activates to better analyze the situation. He realizes that the support guy is controlling the monsters with his magic flute. A minotaur charges to attack the girl, and she calls out for the protagonist. He cuts the creature down with his sword and complains that this fight seems endless. Surrounded, he thinks he can't use area of effect attacks and will soon be defeated by exhaustion. With a smile, he then comes up with a plan, since the enemy's target is the white-haired girl. At that moment, shadow chains emerge from his feet to hold the monsters in place. He then yells that the girl is defenseless to attract the real enemy's attention. The lady becomes desperate and asks why he revealed her secret out loud. The traitor watches from afar and sees the minotaur slowly approaching the girl. The villain thinks his plan was almost ruined and decides to finish the lady off himself. He then appears behind her and says that if she wants to blame someone, she should blame her ungrateful father. After that, a slash was made, but it was our hero who had appeared to save the girl. The attacker is in shock as he didn't expect a simple miner to be so fast. The girl recognizes him as Ludan, and our hero explains that he was controlling the monsters. Ludan then laughs and admits he was tricked by a miner and let his guard down. With a red aura, he tells them not to think they've already won and prepares to fight. The Minotaurs then begin to be consumed by a red, dark energy. Ludan boasts and says he will show them the true terror of a controller type awakened. The lady is shocked and realizes the villain's aura is that of a rank C, and he's absorbing the monster's energy. The ground then cracks and lava begins to emerge, and she wonders if he's going to evolve a lava minotaur. Our hero is surprised by the power jump and thinks that guy's ability is way too overpowered. And with that, a giant rank C lava minotaur emerges, roaring with its overwhelming strength. The fiery creature charges forward with a powerful punch to finish them both off at once. The young man and the girl join forces and block the blow with the shadow sword. The impact of the attack causes a massive explosion that destroys part of the surrounding cave. Protecting the lady, he thinks that the power of a rank C is too much for the two of them alone. The girl then notices that the young man was injured and has some burns on his face and shoulder. The lava monster prepares to attack again, and the two find themselves in a very difficult situation. The young man then tells her to hold on tight and starts running as if to flee the fight. The lady screams in terror as she sees the attack coming her way, but our hero immobilizes the creature's arms with his shadows. Shadow threads restrain the lava monster, and the girl is surprised that he also has a control ability. He warns that he can't hold the creature for long and tells them to run while they can. The young man then turns to the lady and tells her to run as far as she can as soon as she enters the dungeon. As they run, the girl asks if he's not coming with her and why he's staying behind. He explains that he needs to hold off the monster to give her time to escape safely. With a smile, he tells her to hide well because he'll find her soon. Watching the girl run away, he thinks that after all, she's worth $1 million to him. The lava minotaur breaks free from the chains and roars, asking where they hid. Our hero then appears on a rock and asks with a smile if the creature is looking for someone. Furious, the lava monster screams and demands to know where Miss Chin is hiding. The creature then attacks him with a powerful swing of its axe to finish him off. The young man challenges it to guess and leaps with his giant sword to attack the monster. With a precise strike, he hits the minotaur dead on. But to his surprise, the attack has no effect, and he's completely shocked. His sword didn't even scratch the monster's rock-like skin, and he can't believe it. The fiery creature mocks the young man, calling him stupid for trying to cut a rock with his blade. Our hero starts running, thinking that the monster's lava field is a bit tricky to deal with. With that, he decides to lure the creature to a more open area while the monster chases him like a rat. The creature then taunts him and asks if running is the only thing he knows how to do. Even so, he activates his Eye of the Shadow because he believes every monster has a weakness. The beast charges forward at full speed and yells that after finishing him, it will go after that woman. Screaming for him to die, the creature launches a powerful fire attack, but the young man manages to dodge. With that, he finally sees the purple flame on the creature's chest and yells that he's found its weak spot. Without wasting any time, he leaps with his giant sword, ready to strike the creature's weakness. With a determined look, he prepares to land the fatal blow on the fire monster. But the creature senses his intention and asks if he thinks it doesn't know what he's planning. The beast then boasts that against absolute power, his tricks are useless and attacks him with everything it has. With the force of the blow, he is thrown against the wall and thinks that this is the power of a rank C. The lava monster advances and challenges him to run to see where he'll hide this time. Even injured, he clenches his fist and thinks he needs to wait for an opening to counterattack. The fiery creature taunts him and asks if he's going to keep trying to attack it with that dagger. The monster says it's useless, and our hero waits for the beast to attack again to get his chance. With that, he yells that now's his chance and seizes the opening to attack the weak spot. His blade strikes the monster's lava core dead on with a precise and powerful blow, but he's shocked because his attack didn't have the effect he expected against the creature. The heat from the core is so intense that not even the shadow energy can completely block it. He then realizes the enemy is smarter than he thought and knows how to protect its weak point. The creature admits the young man discovered its weakness, but it won't do him any good. The monster mocks him and says the core is over 2,000 degrees and offers him a deal. With a smile, he calls it a traitor and says he would never trust someone like it. Furious, the Minotaur yells that he's asking to die and charges at him with full force. The young man dodges the attack, and the creature tells him to stop dodging the fight. He then transforms his dagger into shadow chain blades to counterattack. With his new weapon, he attacks and says the monster is dodging too. Seeing another chance, he splits his weapon into multiple parts to attack, going all out to hit the scumbag's core. But before the attack hits the monster, the intense heat from the core begins to melt his shadow weapon rapidly. The fiery creature laughs and says it's useless, while the young man complains that this is a pain. The creature then attacks him with a powerful blow and yells at him to give up fighting. He realizes his energy consumption is high and thinks about asking the entity for help, but he doesn't want the entity to take over his body, so he leaps to attack again. Besides, if he defeats this rank C, he'll gain a massive amount of experience. With that, he attacks the lava core once more with all his strength and determination. The young man refuses to believe he can't break through the defense and keeps pushing. Screaming in pain, he continues to attack even as the flames burn his body. And with one last shout, he finally manages to shatter the creature's lava core. The creature screams in pain, and the system announces that the Berserker Fury mode has been activated. With that, the monster unleashes an explosion of energy, sending him flying. He is then thrown hard against the cave wall. The monster mocks him for being a mere miner, and the young man realizes its attacks have a burn effect. With a threatening look, the lava creature says this is the end of the line for the young man. Suddenly, he feels something strange happening inside his body, and a much more powerful dark energy begins to flow from him. The shadow entity explains that this power was always with him, but his body couldn't handle it. The system notifies him of his awakening, and he realizes the new energy is healing his wounds. The lava creature is shocked to see him recover so quickly and his aura becoming more sinister. Angrily, the monster decides it can't give him any more time and charges forward to attack. But the young man dodges the fire attack with incredible speed, leaving the creature surprised. The monster is shocked that even with its speed tripled, the young man can keep up. The creature wonders how a simple rank E can be so strong and becomes furious with the situation. With that, it decides to flood the area with lava to see where the young man can run now. A giant wave of lava rushes toward the young man to surround him and end the fight. The fire monster then yells for the lava to burn him until he turns to ash. But suddenly, the creature becomes confused. Surrounded by lava, he wonders just how strong his shadow enhancement can get. With a mocking smile, he then taunts the fiery creature, saying the heat is too low. The monster is in shock and can't believe what it's seeing, as the young man says it seemed to be having fun before. With his shadow blade in hand, the young man says with a serious look that it's his turn now. Without wasting any time, he charges straight towards the lava minotaur. He then leaps and with his two shadow blades spins in the air to attack the creature. With that, the system notifies him that his defense, strength, and speed have been increased by 200%. The fiery creature screams in pain and realizes its hand was injured by the young man's attack. Furious, the monster calls him a brat and can't believe it was wounded by a simple miner. But the young man is unfazed and with his daggers in hand prepares for the next attack. He then realizes that with the enhancement, he can even launch long-range attacks. Despite being hit, the fire monster begins to regenerate using the lava around it. The creature boasts that it can regenerate infinitely and that his attacks are useless. The young man then smiles and wonders if that infinite regeneration is really true. With his Eye of the Shadow, he notices that the monster's energy is actually weakening. The fire monster challenges him to try again if he's so sure of his victory. With that, the young man attacks the creature relentlessly with his shadow blades. The creature then starts to feel weak and wonders what's happening to its body. Our hero explains that its energy is at its limit and tells it to surrender right now. The man then tries to make a deal, saying there's no reason for him to fight like this. Desperate, he offers 5 million for the young man to hand over the girl and leave him in peace. The young man then taunts him, asking if he won't go back on his word later. The man swears he's not a traitor, but the young man doesn't believe a single word he says. With a smile, he says he just remembered something important at that moment. Our hero explains that if he hands over a traitor to the girl's father, he'll gain a huge favor. The man becomes desperate and thinks that if he falls into her father's hands, he's done for. With no other choice, he then holds up a blue crystal and yells for the young man not to blame him. The shadow entity is shocked and wonders why the man has a fragment of the otherworld gate. With that, she explains that if that crystal is destroyed, everyone will be trapped here forever. The man laughs and says he was forced to do this as he holds the crystal with a malicious smile. But to the monster's surprise, our hero snatches the crystal from its hand in the blink of an eye. He then yells for the creature to die as he attacks the lava core with his shadow blade. The minotaur then screams in pain as it's struck, and after that, several shadow spears emerge and pierce the scumbag. The monster then falls defeated to the ground, and a sphere of energy floats from its lifeless body. He then realizes it was the energy core, and his Eye of the Shadow evolves to the supreme level. But suddenly, the ground begins to shake, and the entire cave sways from side to side. The entity explains that the abyss is collapsing without the Minotaur's energy to sustain it. Once outside, the girl invites him to join her faction, praising his strength, which is above that of a rank E. The young man refuses the offer for now, and asks her to keep his powers a secret for his own safety. The lady agrees and hands over the 1 million she promised, and he thanks her for the money. He then summons his giant sword and asks if Longman Street also buys items like that. The girl analyzes the weapon and says the material is special and that she'll take it to be appraised. As he says goodbye, he thinks that if she knows about weapons, he could sell his equipment through her. But he also considers that she might trick him, but at least he's already made 1 million either way. Back in his room, he analyzes the crystal, and the entity says that with more of them, it can make him reach rank S. The young man becomes thoughtful at the idea of becoming one of the most powerful awakeners in existence. The entity thinks that the otherworld gate might be active and that it needs to recover soon. She also reflects that one day they will fight beings of another level and questions whether she should tell him everything. But the creature decides it's too soon and that it's best to let the young man get stronger first. Elsewhere, we see that the NG group's rank E rift was sealed due to a mining accident. The young man watches from a distance, thinking that with his current strength, there's no way to uncover the truth of that place. With a determined look, he reveals that this place holds the truth about his parents' death. We see a flashback where a man offers 200,000 as compensation and asks him to sign a waiver. With a mocking smile, the man asks if the young man thinks the compensation amount is too little. But the young man doesn't want the money and with a sad look says he just wants to know the truth of what happened. The man then grabs him angrily and yells that his parents died in an accident with the other miners. Outraged, the young man yells that it's impossible, as his parents were rank C, and that they must still be alive. Then a security guard holds him back, and the man says that anything can happen in a rift, no matter the rank. The young man struggles and shouts that the monsters there were weak, and his parents would have been able to escape safely. The security guard accuses him of just trying to squeeze more money out of the company with his drama. With a furious look, the guard raises his fist and says the boy is asking for a beating. Suddenly, a man arrives and stops the assault, revealing himself as the head of the NG group, a rank B awakened. The boss then scolds his subordinate and asks if that's the proper way to console the families. He then sits down and offers the money, but the young man insists he just wants to know the truth. With that, the man promises a full investigation and that the truth about his parents would be revealed. But instead, his parents were accused of theft, and he was forced to pay a huge compensation. The entity tells him to stop lamenting and go find more fragments to get stronger. The young man thinks that if his energy weren't undetectable, he wouldn't be in this situation as a minor. He also wonders if the entity is good or evil, and if the promise of rank S was just a delusion. The creature gets angry and says it only helps him because it sees talent in him, leaving the young man even more confused. At that moment, he receives a notification on his phone and sees that it's an invitation for a new mission. Arriving at the rift entrance, a man asks why he took so long to show up. An older man recognizes him and calls him by his name, and the young man greets him as Uncle Hao. The uncle comments that he's grown a lot and that it's been 5 years since his parents' accident. One of the mercenaries complains that they were expecting someone important, not just some random miner for the mission. The official then explains that the mission is in a rank D rift to extract 60 kilograms of ore. Our hero finds it strange that they're taking 4 rank C awakeners for such a simple and easy task. He senses hostility from the group and also the presence of another rank C hiding nearby. From a distance, a red-haired man watches everything on his phone and says his toys have arrived. With a malicious smile, he reveals himself as the Blood Panther and announces that the hunt is about to begin. Once inside the rift, Uncle Hao asks if he needs a suit, but the young man declines the offer. The mercenaries then mock him and call him the king of trash for being just a simple miner. The uncle asks him not to provoke the men, but the young man tells him not to worry about it. With a keen eye, he notices that the local vegetation seems to have been arranged to hide something. As they walk, he continues to feel a deadly and dangerous presence approaching them. Suddenly, he stops and senses that the enemy can no longer hold back and is ready to attack. He notices that the other rank C has also sensed the danger and wonders if he's just observing. One of the mercenaries yells at him to walk faster, and Uncle Hao says they'll pick up the pace. With that, he comes up with a plan to use the environment to throw them off so he can investigate everything in secret. He then tells his uncle to hold on and starts running at high speed through the forest. The mercenaries are shocked, as they didn't expect a simple miner to be so fast. One of them yells for them to stop, but the leader says to ignore it, as separating from the group is suicide. From a treetop, the Blood Panther observes and wonders if they sense the danger nearby. With a smile, he thinks the game would be too boring if everyone was as stupid as those 3. One of the men says he feels like he's being watched, but the boss calls him paranoid, saying it's just a rank D mission. Another agrees, saying he also feels a strange chill in the air as a leaf slowly falls. The third then suggests they go back, but the leader scolds him and tells him to stop panicking. Suddenly, the leader's eyes widen as he realizes something is very wrong with this place. With that, his 2 companions get spooked and jump back, preparing for a possible fight. The Blood Panther appears behind one of them and traps him with red threads, and the man recognizes him instantly. The leader tells him to release his brother, and the villain laughs, saying they've provoked his gang multiple times. Without mercy, the Blood Panther uses his threads to attack the man with several fatal cuts. The other 2 mercenaries are completely shocked to see their brother defeated so easily. Furious, the second brother screams and charges into the fight, but the leader tries to stop him from doing something reckless. But the villain's red threads easily stop the mercenary's punch. The villain then mocks the man and asks if he thinks he's qualified to fight. With no chance to defend himself, the red threads slice the mercenary into several pieces. Terrified, the last mercenary can only call the villain a monster. The villain laughs and says that scared prey is the best kind, as the man flees, screaming for help. Meanwhile, our hero and his uncle are resting, and the older man asks why he abandoned them. The young man then asks if his uncle has offended any powerful factions recently. With a serious look, he reveals that this mission is a trap for all of them. Suddenly, the last mercenary appears, and the young man asks his uncle to tell him everything he knows. Furious, the mercenary accuses him of knowing about the danger and not warning them. The young man then says he's not useless because he led him straight to the mastermind of the plan. With his eyes glowing, he says the mercenary is about to meet a tragic end. Without him noticing, the red threads trap him and the Blood Panther watches from a distance. The villain then says he didn't expect a simple miner to be so interesting. Our hero then activates his supreme eye of the shadow and faces the villain head-on. Uncle Hao then kneels and begs the Blood Panther to spare their lives there, but the villain reveals that the uncle let a secret slip, and that's how he found out everything. Desperate, Uncle Hao swears he'll take the secret to his grave and won't tell a soul. With a malicious smile, the villain prepares to attack, and our hero yells for his uncle. He then attacks him and says the only people who keep secrets are the ones who are no longer alive. Seeing his uncle defeated, the young man becomes furious and calls the villain a bastard. Without wasting any time, he summons his shadow blades and charges at the enemy. The villain blocks the blow and is surprised that a miner has fighting skills. With a smile, he says those skills only work against weak guys like Zhou Ting. With that, he launches an attack that shatters the ground, and the young man dodges with a backflip. The villain taunts him, and the young man activates his shadow enhancement to go all out. The two then exchange several high-speed blows, their blades clashing. Even with his enhancement, the young man realizes he can't block all the attacks. The villain calls him distracted and seizes the opening to land a powerful blow. With the force of the impact, our hero is sent flying and is left vulnerable. Uncle Hao tries to help, but the young man tells him to fall back, thinking he needs to change his tactics. With a sinister smile, the villain says there's no use panicking, as they're both going to meet their end there. But the young man activates his supreme eye of the shadow and says the fight isn't over yet. With that, he transforms his energy into shadow daggers and throws them at the enemy. But the villain's red threads block everything, and he asks if that's all the young man can do. The young man then replies that there's more and leaps for an aerial attack with his dagger. The Blood Panther admits the miner has a lot of tricks, but it won't do him any good. He easily blocks the blow and says our hero is just a simple rank E. Suddenly, the bald mercenary erupts from the ground and yells for the Blood Panther to die. He then transforms into a creature and traps the villain, saying this is his weakness. But the villain just smiles and says that close quarters combat is his specialty. The mercenary is completely shocked, as he didn't expect that reaction from the enemy. With that, the Blood Panther uses his threads to finish off the mercenary once and for all. Our hero is surprised to see the rank C defeated so easily. He then tells his uncle that they need to run, as the enemy is much stronger than him. The villain then scoffs at them and asks with a smile if they really think they can escape. In hiding, the young man treats his uncle's wounds, but the older man tells him to run alone and leave him behind. The young man then asks what his uncle did to make the Blood Panther want him dead so badly. With that, Uncle Hao reveals that he thinks he discovered the truth about the death of the boy's parents. The protagonist is completely shocked by the revelation and can hardly believe what he just heard. With his eyes glowing purple, he becomes furious and glares at his uncle with a serious look. He then grabs the older man and demands that he tell him everything he knows about the case right now. The uncle explains that the villain's pursuit confirms that there's something wrong with Kuishi Hao. He says the young man's father suspected experiments, and soon after, they were framed for theft. Furious, the young man asks why he didn't say anything about it back then to help. Scared, the uncle explains that he was just a minor and couldn't risk losing his job. Disappointed, he pushes his uncle and accuses him of letting his parents suffer a great injustice. The older man admits that guilt made him drink and he accidentally revealed the secret to someone. Suddenly, red threads appear and attack Uncle Hao as the villain watches from afar. The protagonist watches the scene completely in shock, unable to do anything to stop it. The young man screams his uncle's name as he sees him being caught by the villain's red threads. With a sad smile, Uncle Hao apologizes for being weak and cowardly in the past. In his last words, he asks the young man not to hold a grudge against him for his choices. The villain then realizes the boy is the son of those two rank Cs and understands everything. With a leap, he says he's going to send the young man to meet his parents, but the young man refuses. With that, the two exchange fierce blows and the shadow blades and threads clash in the air. The young man defends himself with his giant sword but still ends up with some cuts. The Blood Panther taunts him, asking if he doesn't find it exciting to see his own body wounded. Angrily, the protagonist says the villain's spiderweb isn't invincible and prepares himself. He realizes the enemy's defense is weaker at the moment of attack and comes up with a plan. Yelling to break through, the young man trades a blow and hits the villain's chest with his sword. The impact sends both of them flying, but the protagonist managed to injure the enemy. The Blood Panther gets annoyed and calls him a ruthless kid for trading injuries. Leaning on his sword, he wonders if he has reached his limit in this fight. Seeing the young man's condition, the villain realizes he was bluffing and that he got a scare. Even wounded, he remains standing, but several cuts suddenly appear on his body. The villain admits that if the young man weren't rank E, he'd be done for, and pulls him in with his threads. With that, our hero is suspended in the air, and the villain challenges him to finish him off now. The Blood Panther then approaches and asks if he's still trying to intimidate him with his glare. With a malicious laugh, he admits he gets excited seeing the young man's look of anger and helplessness. To increase the young man's suffering even more, he says he's going to tell him an important secret. The villain then reveals that his uncle was right, and that his parents didn't die in an accident. With a monstrous smile, he yells that it was actually him who finished them both off that day. He then says the boy's father made the same face when he ended his mother's life. The villain laughs as he recounts the details, but a dark aura begins to emanate from the young man's body. Suddenly, the Blood Panther gets confused as his threads are being burned away by the purple energy. With that, an explosion of power sends the villain flying, and he calls the young man a demon. Our hero then stands up, enveloped in a much more powerful and menacing dark aura. With a look full of hatred, he glares at the villain and swears he will finish him off once and for all. The entity then realizes the boy's hatred can be used to stimulate the shadow energy. The system announces that his shadow energy has increased. His enhancement has leveled up to 2, and he has awakened the Shadow Leap ability. The Blood Panther is shocked to see the young man's wounds healing on their own and wonders if the boy has healing abilities. The villain then smiles and says the prey only gets interesting when it fights on the brink of death and attacks the young man with his red threads once more. But our hero dodges the threads with a smile and asks if he's really referring to him, now full of confidence with his new power. He then uses his new ability and appears behind the enemy in the blink of an eye, and with a threatening look says that in the shadows the villain is the prey. The Blood Panther is startled and doesn't understand how the boy's strength increased so much, and the protagonist comments that the enemy's speed is fast. The two trade blows and the villain says that even with that speed, it won't be enough, and he believes the young man still can't defeat him. The The young man then leaps back and launches a swarm of shadow daggers at the enemy, yelling for the villain to try and defend against that attack. The Blood Panther uses his threads to block all the daggers with ease and with a smile says that move is useless against him. Our hero then asks if the villain is sure and teleports to one of his daggers, appearing right in front of the enemy to attack with everything he's got. With a determined look, he asks what the Blood Panther thinks of that new move, and the young man is ready for a surprise attack. The villain blocks the blow and mocks the young man, saying his toy knives are useless, and claims his defense cannot be broken. The Blood Panther continues to hold off the attack, looking very confident in his victory, not believing a rank E could be a real threat. The young man then smiles and asks who said he was trying to break his defense, revealing that his real plan was something else from the start. He explains that the enemy can't attack and defend at the same time with his threads, and that the villain's weakness is his slower reaction time. With his new speed, he creates several clones and attacks the villain from all sides at once. The Blood Panther is shocked by the boy's power and can't believe he's being defeated. Kneeling and wounded, the villain wonders how he could lose to a simple miner like that. The protagonist then points his blade at him and demands to know the truth about the accident. With a malicious smile, the enemy tries to provoke him and starts talking about his mother, but our hero doesn't fall for the provocation and with a quick strike, puts an end to his games. The villain screams in pain and realizes the young man ripped off a part of his body with the blade. As the Blood Panther screams on the ground, the young man watches him with a cold, emotionless gaze. With his eyes glowing, he warns that his patience has its limits, and he wants the answers now. The villain then reveals that Kuishihao ordered him to finish off his parents after they discovered his experiments. Hearing the name of the NG group's boss, the young man's fury intensifies and he glares at the enemy. The Blood Panther tries to mock him, asking if the boy is scared now that he knows everything. With a smile, he says the young man should just let him go if he doesn't want any more trouble. But the protagonist swears he won't let any of his parents' murderers get away. With a determined look, he goes to the NG Group headquarters in the rain, ready for his revenge. He then watches from a distance as the NG Group's boss, Kui Shihao, gets out of his car with a bodyguard. The entity warns him that even though he's rank C now, he shouldn't recklessly seek death. With that, the creature explains that he should be able to sense the presence of a powerful rank A nearby. The young man says he knows and runs after the car, while the entity reveals that the rank A is also there. He then thinks that he won't be reckless and won't attack Kuishihao at that moment. Leaping across buildings, he reflects that he can't fully trust the Blood Panther's words. He needs to find out if the order came only from the boss or if the entire NG group was involved in the plan. He hopes the rank A isn't involved, otherwise a blood debt will be paid with blood. He follows the car and wonders what the boss is doing at the Blood Panther's gang warehouse. Inside, a muscular man tells everyone to be careful with the experimental equipment. Kuishihao then asks the man if the old miner Hao Wu is already dead. The man explains that the Blood Panther has disappeared, so they can't confirm Hao Wu's death. The boss gets furious, and the man says the villain must have underestimated his opponent on that mission. He then orders them to move the equipment quickly, as the experiment is in a very critical phase. In hiding, the young man hears the boss ask if the money for the deal is ready. With his eyes glowing purple, he confirms that Kuishihao was the culprit all along. Suddenly, the muscular man senses a strange presence and looks back suspiciously. With a powerful attack, he destroys the area and yells, asking who is hiding there. The boss then asks what happened, and the man says he felt a murderous intent nearby. In hiding, the young man thinks that was a close call, and that his rank C strength is still not enough. At another time, we see the large building of the Chin Group, a powerful and influential company. The entity then asks why he isn't looking for missions as usual. The young man explains he's there to find the third fragment and get his giant weapon appraised. A receptionist then approaches and politely asks if she can help him with anything. He says he's looking for Chin Xian, but the lady asks if he has an appointment. Suddenly, a woman accuses him of being a poor miner, and he recognizes her instantly. She then asks young Master Chin to kick the young man out, as he was causing a disturbance. Surrounded by guards, he asks if this is how they treat their visitors. Young Master Chin scoffs at him and says a poor guy like him isn't even fit to be a dog. With a serious look, he thinks the Chin family is arrogant and decides he no longer needs to speak with the girl. He turns to leave, but young Master Chin says he's not going anywhere. With a malicious smile, the green-haired young man orders his guards to finish off the intruder. Using his shadow leap, our hero defeats the guards and grabs the young master by the neck. The woman then threatens him, telling him to let the young man go or the Chin family will get their revenge. Losing his patience, the young man calls her noisy and throws her away with a single blow. He then releases the young man and says he only let him go because of Chin Xian and no one else. Furious, the young master is engulfed in flames and asks who the protagonist thinks he is. He then charges forward with his flaming fists and yells that he's going to finish the young man right now. With serious looks, the two face each other and prepare for the confrontation that is about to happen. But suddenly, a man in a mask appears and blocks the young master's attack at the last second. A white-haired lady appears and accuses him of having a lot of nerve to cause trouble there. She then orders them to take the guards and her cousin outside, leaving the green-haired young man shocked. He complains that she's going easy on him and says she should have finished off the intruder for good. At that moment, the man in the mask grabs the girl's cousin by the collar forcefully. The young man is confused and asks what his cousin is doing, as he is her family. The woman in the red dress tries to defend her boyfriend, saying he was just defending her honor, but the white-haired girl defends him, saying he is her friend, leaving the other woman shocked. With that, she orders the guards to take everyone outside and says to never hire them again. The woman is then dragged away, screaming desperately for help from young Master Chin. The lady then warns her cousin not to use the family name to deceive others again. After resolving the commotion, she invites him in and says she wasn't expecting his visit. She apologizes for the embarrassment, but the young man says every family has relatives like that. Suddenly, an assistant arrives and informs her that President Chin wants to see her immediately. She then apologizes and tells him to wait a bit, as she'll be right back. He asks if it's something important, but the assistant says the order was for her to go at once. Alone in the room, he suddenly feels a powerful energy and a golden glow surprises him. An older man appears out of nowhere in front of him and glares at him with a serious and intimidating look. With his eye of the shadow, he analyzes the man and discovers he is a rank A awakened. He is surprised to see that the man has two powerful, high-level abilities. Our hero tries to play it cool, saying he's just a minor, while thinking that the mental attack is strong. The older man is surprised that his fear ability didn't work and doubts that he's a minor. With that, he attacks the young man with a powerful thunder strike to test his true strength. Despite the force of the attack, the protagonist manages to defend himself and suffers no serious injuries. The white-haired man is even more shocked to see that the young man managed to withstand his power. He then says that to withstand that blow, the young man must have at least the strength of a rank B. With a serious look, he demands to know why the young man is approaching his daughter like that. Suddenly, the girl returns and pulls her father's ear, accusing him of interrogating him on purpose. Furious, she yells for him to leave and stop harassing her friend, while the young man watches the scene. Our hero then realizes that this man is the famous Qin Xiao Shang, the head of Longmen Street. The lady apologizes for her father's behavior, but he says he understands his concern. She then asks how he knows her father so well, and he gets a little flustered to answer. The young man then hears her father's thoughts, who is worried about his daughter's safety. The girl becomes furious and yells for her father to get out of there, and we see him flying out of the building. She then hands him a card with a 5 million deposit for the young man's giant sword, but he says he came for another reason and shows the blue crystal, asking where he can find more. The girl explains that those fragments used to be common, but someone has been buying them in bulk in recent years. With that, she suggests he try his luck at the Longman Street auction, and the young man thanks her for the tip. The entity then wonders if this has anything to do with the NG group and that someone is collecting the items. The girl's dad finds out that Li is 20 years old and was a total nobody, but since they couldn't sense his energy, the guy's official record still lists him as just a simple minor. This gets the old man wondering how the kid jumped from rank E to C in just a few days, and if he'd been holding back this whole time. Just then, another guy shows up and asks if the boss still has any of those giant swords his daughter sent over. Over the phone, the guy is rushing him, telling him to ask if there are any swords left because he'll buy every single one they've got. With a little smirk, the girl's dad asks if the sword has some special use for an old fox like him to be so keen on getting his hands on it. A voice on the phone says he can't say much, just that the sword's material could make their army a whole lot stronger. Lost in thought, the old man concludes that the kid's strength and identity are a complete mystery, and that he's impossible to figure out. Elsewhere, our hero is at the auction, thinking that with so much stuff here, he might find some energy fragments. Suddenly, he runs into the goon and the woman from before, and she insists she has nothing to do with young Master Qin, and even says she quit her job. While the woman is busy praising him, the goon is fuming, wondering why the Blood Panther hasn't taken care of that darn minor yet. The man then turns and glares at our hero, demanding to know how a minor managed to get into such a fancy place. With a sarcastic grin, our hero says the goon's memory doesn't seem to be all that great. He then unleashes his dark aura and asks if the guy has already forgotten the beatdown he gave him a few days ago. Terrified, the couple takes a step back as a man appears behind them, and the goon freezes when he sees the newcomer. This man says the goon is a disgrace to the Black Panther gang, and the guy calls him Brother Bao. With a smile, the man says that messing with his subordinate is the same as messing with the entire Black Panther gang. He then lunges forward with a punch, telling our hero to get on his knees and apologize right now. But our protagonist plants his feet firmly on the ground and takes the full force of the man's attack. With a smirk and his eyes glowing, he says that kneeling for him is something that would only happen in his wildest dreams. The goon is shocked by the kid's nerve, saying he doesn't know his place for talking back to Brother Bao. Out of nowhere, the white-haired girl shows up and tells the Black Panther that they're here to spend some cash, not to start a brawl. With a serious look, she says that if they really want to cause trouble, she'd be more than happy to join the party. With that, the man lets him go, saying he'll cut Miss Chun some slack and save the fight for later. The young lady then motions for him to come with her, saying they're heading to the auction, which is about to start. She gets closer and asks if he's okay, but our hero replies that he's perfectly fine. The goon then explains that the kid stole the sword that was meant as a tribute for him, and even threatened the gang. Furious, the man grabs the goon and asks if he's sure, and the woman confirms the story. Suddenly, another man appears and asks what's going on with the Black Panther. He remarks that this kid was one of the Blood Panther's targets and wonders how he's still alive. This makes them wonder if the kid actually defeated the Blood Panther, but they dismiss it as impossible, since he's just a rank E. With his eyes glowing purple, the protagonist glares at his enemy and whispers the name Kuai Shihao. The villain then recognizes him as a dark aura completely surrounds our protagonist. At that moment, the head of the NG group remembers the weak and timid young man he humiliated in the past. The villain wonders how the kid got mixed up with the girl's family and what he's even doing there. The young lady asks why he came, and the young man explains that her father wanted to see him out of the blue. He then asks if her father is going to attack him again, but the girl assures him that with her around he wouldn't dare. Out of nowhere, the head of the NG group appears, saying he didn't expect to run into our hero here. With a sarcastic grin, our hero says he's just a side character grinding away in the mines to pay off his debts. The villain then tries to weasel his way out of it, claiming the decision about his parents came from the higher-ups, and there was nothing he could do. With his eyes glowing, he says the man washed his hands of all responsibility, and that deep down he knows the truth. Our hero then says that Uncle Ho asked him to pass on a message about truth and retribution. The bodyguard wants to teach the kid a lesson, but the boss stops him since they're on the Chun family's turf. With a sinister look, they decide they need to send someone to deal with the kid since he knows too much. The young lady then leads him to her father, just as the auction is about to get started for real. She tells him to go have a chat with her dad, while she keeps an eye out for the item he wants. Our hero then asks why President Kyun summoned him, and the older man says he'll get straight to the point. The man asks if the kid has any more of those weapons he sold to his daughter last time. He considers not showing all his cards at once, but with a smile he says he found the weapons by chance and happens to have 2 more. The old man then offers a total of 45 million for the 3 weapons and asks what the kid thinks. The young man explains that 15 million per weapon isn't a small amount, but for them these weapons are lifesavers. With a smile he throws back a counteroffer, 25 million for each of them. The older man is completely floored by the kid's audacity upon hearing the new price. Angrily, the man calls him bold, but the young lady cuts him off, saying his item is up next. A sinister figure appears behind the young lady, and her father agrees to transfer the remaining 70 million. As the two walk away, the man watches them with anger, calling the kid a darn punk. The auction is already underway, and the auctioneer announces bids of 7 and 10 million for the item. It's revealed that the item is the blue crystal fragment, and the bidding is already at 15 million. Our hero is thrilled to see the fragment, thinking that with his 70 million, he can definitely afford it. Without even thinking, he places a bid of 30 million to intimidate the other buyers. The head of the NG group sees him and wonders why the kid would be interested in that specific item. With a smirk, the villain then raises the bid to 50 million and challenges him to keep going. Unfazed, our hero raises the bid to 60 million, leaving the girl with her jaw on the floor. Her father then warns him not to bid any higher as the item isn't worth that much. But the kid glares at the villain, thinking that if he wants the item he's going to have to fight for it. The young man turns and with a defiant look asks who has deeper pockets, the Kyun group or the NG group. With a grin he wonders aloud who has more money to burn here. The old man says the Kyun group has more money, but questions why he should help a punk like him. At that, the protagonist reveals that he has 2 more of those powerful swords and asks if that helps. He then says he'll accept the previous price, but that amount still isn't enough to compete. This gets the Kyun group leader wondering if the kid really has more of those weapons as the auction continues. The girl then pulls her father's ear and says that if the young man doesn't deliver the swords, she'll pay him back herself. As the auctioneer gives the second call, the young lady holds our hero's hand to give him a little encouragement. She then hurries him along, telling him to place the bid before the villain snags the item from under his nose. Without a second thought, the kid raises his paddle and drops a bid of 100 million all at once. The villain immediately counters with a bid of 200 million as the item is crucial for his group. And with that, the bidding war kicks off, with the prices jumping to 300, 400, and 500 million. The audience is in shock, wondering if the two have lost their minds fighting so hard over a single fragment. The henchman says the kid is provoking them, but the boss retorts that he doesn't have the status for that yet. To shut down the bidding war, the man raises his paddle. It makes an unbelievable bid of 1 billion. Everyone is completely stunned by the amount of the bid and can't believe what they just heard. The young lady says the villain is just trying to get a rise out of them, but our hero finds it strange, thinking he wouldn't spend that much on impulse. The girl's father warns him to think carefully and asks if he can really create enough weapons to cover a $1 billion price tag. The girl scolds her father for being a buzzkill and urges him not to let the villain win. Without hesitating, our hero raises his paddle and stuns everyone with a bid of 2 billion. The two rivals lock eyes as the auctioneer announces the unbelievable bid of 2 billion. The villain's henchman wonders where a kid like him got that kind of money to throw around, Angrily, the head of the NG group figures the money could have only come from the Kyun group. The auctioneer then bangs the gavel and announces the final call for the $2 billion bid. The young lady congratulates him on his win, and our hero asks why she's so excited about it. She then says she loves watching the bad guys get humiliated, all while her father watches them. Sarcastically, the older man comments that the kid had a lot of fun making that $2 billion bid. The man then says he'll still need over 70 more weapons and asks if he can actually produce them. With a smile, our hero explains that the price of things tends to change when they're no longer rare. He then snaps his fingers and a purple energy begins to swirl around his body. Suddenly, over 100 swords appear, and he says this should cover the $2 billion debt. Impressed, the man praises him, thinking that with his power the kid would be a great asset to his group. The girl stares at our hero with admiration, whispering his name with a smile on her face. She then invites him to hang out with her next time, but her jealous father calls for her to leave. As they walk away, the young lady tells him he can go collect the item he won at the auction. But before leaving, the older man warns him that the NG group is not to be underestimated, and that he can't fight them alone. With that, he suggests they form an alliance, and tells the young man to find him if he's interested in the offer. Elsewhere, the villain's goon is on the phone, saying he got his orders from the other end of the line. He then reports that the Kyun family has already left, and that the kid is on his way to pick up the fragment by himself. With a sinister look, the boss orders them to strike the moment the kid leaves their territory. The goon assures him there won't be any screw-ups this time, since he's bringing 3 rank C specialists along for the job. Walking down the street, our hero thinks that the girl's dad was just trying to win his trust with that whole alliance offer. His spirit says the man is just a rank A, and with enough fragments the kid could easily become a rank S. The spirit then questions his look of disbelief, but the kid replies that he's just looking for a spot to start the trial. In its thoughts, the spirit scoffs, saying there are only 9 rank S level people in the entire world, and it's not so easy to become one of them. Suddenly, our hero stops in his tracks, a look of shock and worry spreading across his face. He then realizes his apartment is on fire, and that the entire building has been attacked by someone. Frantic, the young man starts screaming for his parents as people run away from the chaos. Just then his phone starts to ring, and he quickly answers it to see who's calling. On the other end of the line, the young lady warns him that the Black Panther gang is coming for him, but he tells her it's already too late. The girl tells him to hide and that she's sending help, but the young man refuses, saying he can handle them on his own. The leader of the goons greets him with a smirk and tells him to get on his knees and beg for mercy. Surrounded by his purple aura, our hero says they're seriously underestimating him by sending so few goons to get wiped out. One of the goons then says he's the one who's going down, and that he'd love to see how a rank E is going to fight against 3 rank Cs. With a smirk, our hero then asks why they think the Blood Panther couldn't even handle him. Hearing that, one of the men wonders if the kid is hiding his true strength, but the other one tells him not to fall for it. A goon charges forward, saying the kid has 0 combat skills and that he's going to finish him off. With his sword in hand, he tries to land a decisive blow on the protagonist from behind, but our hero vanishes at the last second and the blow only slams hard into the ground. He then appears behind his enemy and says, "You're right, I'm just an ordinary miner." The other 2 goons are stunned, wondering how he appeared there so quickly. Frightened, the leader orders the other 2 to attack the boy together. With his dark aura, he walks past them both and asks why the leader is so afraid of a miner. With a smile, he then grabs him and asks if the man likes playing with fire. Terrified, the man begs the boy to let him go because he's scared to death. The young man then throws him, and the man says his bosses won't forgive him for that. With a scream of pain, the henchman is completely devoured by the flames of the fire. Our hero then says he'll send them to find him while the girl arrives with her bodyguard. The girl asks if he's okay, but the boy replies that they were just some extras. She then asks what his next move will be, and he says that since they attacked first, he'll fight back. With a determined look, the girl says she'll help him with his revenge plan. Our hero then asks why she's helping him get revenge on the gang. With a blush on her face, she says that he's one of her few friends, and the young man is surprised by the revelation. With a smile on his face, the young man accepts the girl's friendship and help with his plan. As they walk away from the fire, the hero says that their first target will be the Black Panther gang. The girl then takes him to a luxury apartment and tells him to choose any room to stay in. The young man then turns and chooses one of the rooms, but the girl tries to stop him from entering. With her face flushed, she becomes desperate and tells him not to go into that room under any circumstances. Upon opening the door, he sees a room all pink and full of stuffed animals and says it's very feminine. With a smile, he tells her the room suits her, and she feels embarrassed about her taste. A young man approaches and asks if it's normal for a girl to like such cute things. He then tells her she's much cuter like this than acting cold and distant outside. With her face flushed, the young woman is speechless and says no one has ever called her cute. The young man giggles and she complains that if she weren't worried about him she wouldn't be hungry. With that, our hero uses his powers and makes several snacks appear out of nowhere in his hand. He then offers her the food and says it was for emergencies, but she can eat it for now. Suddenly, a girl's look alike shows up and asks how he made that appear out of nowhere. The protagonist says he knows magic, and the girl with her hands clasped begs him to teach her the trick. At that moment, our hero's eyes glow and he realizes something is wrong nearby. He then gets serious and tells the young lady to go home, but she asks what's going on. The young lady's father appears furious with jealousy, and our hero warns her that if she doesn't leave right away the man will finish him off. With that, the older man shouts the kid's name in a fit of rage from inside his luxurious house. Once in a safe place, our hero explains that no one will bother them there as it's neutral territory. The spirit then appears with the 3 fragments he managed to get and says they can finally begin. Our hero then questions the connection between the fragments and the portals that randomly pop up around the world. The spirit explains that the 3 fragments are just one part of a gate to an alternate prison. Tells the young man to go inside, but our hero wants to know what exactly an alternate dimension is. Now in a desert, he asks why there are so many insects and beastmen inside that place. The spirit then reveals that this is an interdimensional prison, and that everyone inside is a prisoner. Shocked by the revelation, our hero can't believe that place is a prison filled with monsters. The spirit then says that to get more answers he first needs to complete all the trials in that place. It then reveals a giant tower, saying it's its masterpiece and our hero's personal testing ground. The kid then scoffs at the tower and thinks about selling it to the girl's dad, leaving the spirit furious. Once inside the tower, he asks about the test and the spirit says the place has 6 floors in total. The spirit says the monster on the first floor is a shadow wyvern, and the kid asks what kind of creature that is. Our hero then wonders why he can't feel any pressure coming from that so-called monster. Little by little, details of the creature begin to appear in front of him, like its tail and its eyes. He then sees a little lizard and asks if that's really the wyvern the spirit was talking about. With a smile, he says that hitting it would be like beating up on a weakling, and the spirit gets annoyed. He then gets closer and tries to pet the cute little creature he found there. Suddenly, the young man senses something strange and goes on alert for what's about to happen. The little dragon's eyes begin to glow with a very intense and dangerous purple energy. Out of nowhere, a whip of dark energy appears and lashes out at the protagonist with great force. He manages to dodge at the last second and wonders what just happened right then and there. The monster grows in size and the spirit reveals that its stats have increased by 600%. Our hero is shocked by the increase and the spirit scoffs, saying his own constitution is inferior. Annoyed at being called inferior, our hero faces the creature as it lunges down to attack him from above. With agility, he dodges the attack and jumps onto the monster's back to start his counter-attack. With shadow claws, he explains that the bigger the body, the more blind spots there are to exploit. With that, the young man rushes forward and unleashes a series of rapid strikes against the giant creature. But his attacks don't even tickle it, and only the sound of metal echoes through the great hall. At this, the protagonist is surprised and doesn't understand why his assault didn't work. He questions the monster's defense and the creature scoffs, saying he's just tickling it. Angrily, his eyes glow and he activates his own shadow buff to fight back. The shadow entity warns him that if he can't tame the creature, he won't pass the test. So our hero creates several shadow clones and attacks the monster from all directions at once. Even with so many attacks, the creature remains completely unharmed, wearing a confident smile. The spirit sees that he has a good handle on the power and decides it's time to ramp up the difficulty of the test. It then turns to the wyvern and asks if the creature is also hungry for the next phase. The spirit says the kid is edible, and the creature stares at him, its eyes glowing with hunger. With that, the monster opens its giant mouth and tries to devour the protagonist in one go. But the young man manages to dodge the attack at the last second, and the creature returns to its normal size. The kid questions the spirit, who explains that the creature sees him as food to replenish its energy. Annoyed, the protagonist complains that the creature isn't fighting fair by trying to bite him. With a smile, he says that since the critter is hungry, he'll give it something to eat. With that, the young man uses his ultimate move and throws several pieces of fried chicken at the monster. The creature is surprised by the food but manages to catch one of the pieces of chicken in mid-air. While the wyvern happily munches on the chicken, the protagonist prepares for his next move. With a confident look, he says the food is delicious and activates his shadow powers. Taking advantage of the distraction, he uses his shadow tentacles and manages to restrain the creature. A system message announces that he has tamed the wyvern and unlocked access to the first floor. The critter eats happily and the spirit calls it a glutton, while the young man receives authority over the gate. Our hero then asks what exactly having activation and binding authority means. The entity explains that each fragment becomes a portal, and the young man realizes he can open them whenever he wants. With a smile, the young man thinks that if the first floor already gave him such a great ability, the rewards from the other floors will be even better. The spirit gets annoyed with his confidence and says it's going to let him suffer a little on the second floor of the tower. It explains that the guards are just servants, and our hero wonders if there will be another transforming creature inside. With the wyvern on his shoulder, he thinks that if the first pet was rank C, the second floor certainly won't be that simple. At that, the entity challenges him to take a look before deciding as they are transported to the next level. They then arrive in front of a giant door, and the spirit assures him that there's nothing dangerous inside. Confidently, our hero agrees and opens the door to see what awaits him in the new challenge ahead. But his expression shifts to one of shock, and he's left completely speechless by what he sees on the other side. Suddenly, 3 giant rank C monsters appear before him, ready for the battle that's about to begin. With a sarcastic smirk, the protagonist glares at the spirit and questions if these are the so-called servants it mentioned. Suddenly, the small creature reveals itself to be a giant dragon that attacks our hero with full force. The giant creature then reveals that the entrance has been sealed, and that there's no way to escape. With a deafening roar, the monster charges toward the kid, intending to finish him off. But the young man uses one of his shadow abilities to escape the attack at the very last second. He then uses another of his powers and summons 2 shadow minions to help him in the battle. With that, he runs for it while his new helpers distract the giant creature for him. The kid prepares to attack, but realizes he won't be able to defeat that monster on his own. Hidden, he watches his minions fight bravely to hold back the dragon and the other monsters. He then seizes the opportunity and rushes to close the giant door, trapping all the monsters inside. Exhausted, he leans against the door and complains that the spirit lied about the monsters being just servants. The spirit then appears and says it didn't lie, and that they are servants, but it's our hero who's just too weak. It explains that the minotaur is for heating, the serpent is for generating electricity, and the turtle is for cleaning. Other monsters are used for household chores and for moving things around in the tower. Out of nowhere, an alert pops up warning that a rank A life form is approaching the area. Outside, a man and a girl appear, and the young lady wonders what they're doing there. Sitting in the living room, the girl's father says he heard the kid wants to deal with the Black Panther gang. The young man confirms it, saying that instead of always being on the defensive, it's better to take the initiative and attack. The older man questions why he never did anything against the gang before, and our hero asks if it's to maintain the balance. The man confirms this and explains that there are 3 major powers in the city. One controls politics and the other controls the economy. The old man explains that he also has a lot of power but can't act unless the gang crosses the line. He then explains that if he attacks the gang, the other 2 groups might team up or take advantage of the situation. With that, our hero asks if this means the Kyun family won't get involved in the fight. With a mysterious smile, the older man just lets out a scoff and says it's not quite like that. The man reveals that he wants the kid and his daughter to form a new group, and the young man questions him about starting a war. He explains that he'll provide the money and the manpower, and the 2 of them will execute the plan. If they fail, he'll bail them out. Our hero is impressed and comments that the man's plan is very well thought out for just one night. The older man then grumbles that he's only doing this because of his daughter, and that in the end she might even run off with the kid. With a bead of sweat, the young man asks the older man not to make his thoughts so obvious. Angrily, the girl shoves her father out of the room and tells him to get out of there immediately. After kicking her father out, she closes the door and asks what our hero's next step will be. The young man says he's going to accept all the missions from the public dimensional portals that exist in the city. With a smile, the girl replies that she'll take care of all the necessary preparations for him. With a sinister look, he thinks that once he merges with the fragments, it will be the end of the Black Panther gang. Our hero then says his goodbyes and asks everyone not to forget to like and comment on the chapter. Some guy introduces a squad to our hero and the girl, saying they're now the Shadow Gang under their command. Right on cue, all the soldiers line up and salute him as their boss, and the young woman explains she picked the name based on his skills. With a smile, the girl asks if he didn't like the name, but the guy replies that he thinks it's actually pretty sweet. In that moment, the main character's eyes start glowing with an intense, ominous purple energy. The girl then reveals that everyone here is rank C, and a group like this would be a serious force anywhere. But our guy notices something and asks why everyone is wearing masks, and his ally explains it's to protect their identities. She then adds with a grin that she also thinks the masks make them look more stylish, and our hero jokes that the artist must have been feeling lazy. So, the guy asks what the next move is, and his partner replies that they're going to snatch up the other gang's jobs. The young man reveals the plan is to steal every single mission from the Black Panther gang, and the girl wonders if they can handle all of it. With a confident look, he answers that they'll only take the most valuable ones because he has other plans for the rest. Elsewhere, a furious man is screaming at a subordinate, calling him useless for letting a new group steal all their missions. The boss then orders him to send people to take care of the problem. But the henchman replies that they can't handle the new gang. Blind with rage, the gang leader grabs his subordinate by the collar, demanding an explanation for this whole mess. Terrified, the man explains that for every mission, the new group sends 5 or 6 advanced rank C warriors. He continues, saying they just don't have enough people. And the furious boss wonders where on earth this new group came from. The enraged boss throws his henchman to the floor and tells him to spend whatever it takes to buy exploration slots and find their target. But the subordinate explains, completely scared, that all the slots for the next expedition have already been snapped up by unknown people. Annoyed, the villain says he doesn't care how. But he wants his men in there and threatens the henchman if he fails. The scene then shifts to a modern house, showing that our heroes are somewhere else entirely. In the living room, the main character and his ally are talking on the sofa, and the guy says he gets the picture. The girl then shows him her phone and says the Black Panther gang paid a fortune for the exploration slots they had. He responds with a smile that he knew they would, because they wouldn't miss out on the most profitable opportunity of the season. With a serious look, our hero reveals that this all has to do with some unwritten rules of the mining sites. He explains that to make more money, the supervisors hide high-quality ores and other rare items. In the past, the Black Panther gang would accept missions from the mercenary guild just to plant spies and pick their targets. Since it's all illegal goods, no one reports the thefts, and now they'd have to pay a steep price to enter the alternate dimensions. The girl then questions that even by selling the slots for a high price, they're making very little money from it. The guy stands up and says the plan is more complex than that as he walks toward the window. He says his trips weren't for nothing and opens a portal to another dimension, leaving the young woman completely floored by the sight. Standing in front of the portal, our hero reveals that he's marked all the entrances to the alternate dimensions and can open them anytime. Excited, the girl says now they can watch who bought the slots to identify and take down the gang's targets. The main character explains he doesn't want too many people knowing about the portals and asks her to pick only trustworthy individuals. Holding his hand, the young woman says she wants to go along too, because she loves doing this kind of heroic work. Seeing her excitement, our hero cracks a confident smirk, so the guy agrees and says they'll finish off the villains together as they walk toward the portal. In a frozen valley, a lone truck makes its way down a completely deserted road. Inside the vehicle, 2 men are talking about the cargo's value, and one of them assures the other he'll get his cut. Suddenly, a huge, sharp rock juts out of the ground, completely blocking the truck's path. Just as one of the men was feeling grateful, something hits the rock hard, causing a small explosion in front of them. Startled, the driver yells to be careful, and his partner wonders what's going on. Immediately after, several more rocks erupt from the ground, hitting the truck with incredible force from all sides. With the impact, the men inside the vehicle are thrown from side to side, unable to brace themselves. The truck then comes to a screeching halt amidst the smoke and dust kicked up by the sudden attacks. The workers quickly get out of the vehicle, and one of them worriedly asks if the cargo is okay. A mysterious man appears and says the cargo is just fine, but one of the workers is shocked to see him. But the villain smiles and says that while the cargo is fine, they are about to have a very big problem. He then launches the rocks toward the workers, who scream in desperation when they realize he's an advanced user. With a wicked grin, the attacker tells them not to run, because he hasn't had enough fun yet. At that moment, our hero appears with a smile and says that if the villain wants to play, he's available. Using his shadow teleport, the guy instantly appears behind the enemy, who is taken by surprise. Furious, the villain asks through gritted teeth who dares to ruin his fun right now. The main character charges forward at high speed and says that robbing people is one thing, but this villain is crossing a line. Surprised by his speed, the enemy thinks about using his rock to counter-attack but has no time to react. But our guy continues his strike, saying that carelessly taking lives is not cool at all. With a powerful impact, he slams the opponent into the ground, creating a huge crater of dust and debris. Down on the ground, the man asks who he is and tries to threaten him, talking about his brothers who are nearby. With a smirk, our hero asks if he's referring to the rank D guys, just as his partner finishes taking out the other goons. The villain is completely stunned and yells, not understanding what just happened to his comrades. The girl then approaches and asks the young man what they should do with these people, suggesting they finish them off. But our guy says that would be letting Blood Panther off too easy and claims he has a better way. He then unleashes his dark energy on the man's face, who screams in pain, clueless about what's happening. Holding the villain, he tells the man to let his boss know that it was Yi from the Shadow Gang who did all of this. The scene then cuts to the front of a hospital, showing what happened to the henchmen after the confrontation. Inside a room, the gang leader furiously screams the names of the Shadow Gang and Yi. Angrily, he wonders how that darn miner managed to get so strong all of a sudden. A henchman explains that the men look fine, but they actually have severe fractures and will take 6 months to recover. He's calculating the 30 million cost for treatment when he suddenly gets a new message on his tablet. Nervously, the man reveals that the other 2 teams also failed, and the gang leader is shocked by the news. Furious, the villain grabs his henchman and asks who is responsible, and the man stammers out Lai's name. The boss can't believe it, and says the dimensions are too far apart. It would be impossible for the guy to be in all those places. But the subordinate confirms the story, and shows a video his men secretly recorded as proof. In the recording, the main character is standing among several defeated henchmen, who are screaming in fear on the ground. With a cold, calculating look, the guy calmly observes the scene of destruction he himself caused. Then he turns to the camera and asks if they're filming, and the men back away, terrified of his presence. Our hero sends a direct message to Blood Panther, calling him out for a fight and saying his goons are weak. In the video, the guy even mocks the cost of their medical bills, and the villain screams, gritting his teeth in rage. Consumed by anger, the boss shatters the device in his hands and swears he will destroy the main character. The scene is set in a large warehouse complex, surrounded by a dense green forest. Inside one of the warehouses, the girl asks the main character why they came to this place. The guy explains that he discovered the gang's warehouse by chance, and believes the boss will come to lead the next team himself. His ally then figures out the plan is to raid the place while the villain is away, and our hero confirms it. Suddenly, the young man's cell phone starts ringing in his pocket, getting his attention. When he answers, he gets the info that Blood Panther and his men have already left for Dimension Number 3. The main character says he'll distract the boss to buy time for his partner to make her move at the warehouse. Worried, she says the villain is rank B and suggests sending backup, but our guy turns down the offer. He then opens a portal and explains he's not going to fight head-on, and bringing help would just get in the way. Our hero assures her he can use the portal to get back quickly if there's any danger, and his friend tells him to be careful. In another dimension, the villain's henchmen are celebrating their successful mission and the wealth they've acquired. One of the men praises the boss, saying the plan was so good that Li Yi didn't even show up to interfere. With a smug smile, the gang leader scoffs, saying a simple miner wouldn't be able to cause him any trouble. But suddenly, the villain senses a strange presence, and his eyes go wide in an instant. He spins around quickly and yells, asking who's there as he stares into the darkness before him. All of a sudden, one of the henchmen screams in fear as a dark energy wraps around his neck before he can react. Our hero appears out of nowhere holding the hostage and compliments the rank B villain's sharp senses, who furiously screams his name. With a smirk, he asks why they're so tense and says he's just a humble, little miner. The hostage then begs for help, and our guy warns the boss not to move or his man might lose a few parts. Not caring one bit about his subordinate, the villain hurls a giant fireball, saying they can all go down together. But the main character just faces the attack head on with a confident smile as the flames close in. Using his teleport, he vanishes, and the henchman yells that he's gone just as the fire hits the other man. Furious, the gang leader launches another fireball, calling our hero a rat for hiding and running from the fight. Suddenly, the villain stops his attack and seems to realize something is off amidst all the chaos. Engulfed in flames, his subordinate says with a weak voice that the boss missed his target and hit him instead. The main character reappears behind the villain and comments that being his henchman is a high-risk job. Filled with rage, the boss says he doesn't mind losing a few men as long as he can take out our hero. Then he yells that he wants to see where the guy will hide this time and prepares an attack called Fire Tornado. A massive tornado of flames erupts, and the other henchmen scream desperately, trying to flee the area. In the middle of the chaos, the main character stands there calmly while the subordinates scream in agony around him. With the fire tornado closing in, our hero uses his shadow teleport to escape at the very last second. Furious, the villain screams the guy's name and tells him to stop hiding like a coward and fight him head on. Watching from a distance, the young man thinks that he can't underestimate a rank B and that it's about time to bounce. With a wicked smile, he wonders what the look on the gang leader's face will be when he finally gets back. Back at his warehouse, the villain shouts in shock, wondering what on earth happened to the place. His henchmen explain that the Shadow Gang attacked with 2 rank B users and over a dozen rank Cs. Annoyed with the excuse, the boss approaches one of the men, who desperately begs for his life. But the villain shows no mercy and sets his own subordinate on fire, who screams in pain as he burns. He then realizes that our hero has the girl's help, which is how he got so many allies all of a sudden. With a dark look and his eyes glowing red, he swears he won't show mercy to anyone anymore. A mysterious man tells the gang leader to forget about it, but the villain refuses to accept the loss of millions. The man with the mustache then asks if he wants to borrow some men to start a war with the Kyun family. He explains that even with the head of the Kyun family away, his daughter is still someone they can't touch. With a hand on the villain's shoulder, the man with the mustache tells him to just hang in there, as this is a critical moment for their experiment. But the gang leader refuses to sit back and yells that he's going to take out the girl and our hero before he leaves town. Suddenly, terrifying monsters appear, and the man with the mustache threatens to silence the villain if he keeps pushing it. Scared, the gang leader drops to his knees, completely intimidated by his partner's power. The man then tells him not to ruin the plan and promises to help take down the Kyun family if the experiment is a success. As his partner walks away, the villain thinks angrily about the humiliation he just suffered and how he's never been treated like that. With a furious look, he wonders if he really needs that man's help to deal with the girl. The scene then cuts to a busy street, with several cars stuck in city traffic. Inside a car, the girl comments to her bodyguard about how clever the main character, Yi, really is. The bodyguard then jokes with the driver to go faster, because the young lady is missing the guy. Embarrassed, the girl denies it. But the bodyguard totally calls her out, revealing she's already mentioned his name 24 times today alone. She tries to explain herself, but suddenly a red van slams hard into their car, cutting the conversation short. The bodyguard yells to watch out and shields the young woman as the car window shatters from the impact. With that, their car is sent flying, and the girl's protector holds her tight so she doesn't get hurt. Right after, a huge tanker truck smashes into the vehicle, causing a massive accident on the street. Then, a strange liquid starts leaking from the truck, spreading all over the crash site. Already out of the car, the guards ask if the girl is okay, and she says she is, amidst the flames. The scene is pure chaos, with fire and the liquid spreading, but the girl and her men manage to get away. Suddenly, the young woman goes on alert with a serious expression, sensing that something else is about to happen. At that moment, Blood Panther appears with his henchmen and greets the girl with a mocking tone. Immediately, the guards get in position to protect their boss and draw their knives, ready for a fight. The girl then calls the villain arrogant and asks if he really thinks he can beat her with so few men. But suddenly, the girl's vision starts to get blurry and distorted, and she realizes something is wrong. She feels dizzy, and the bodyguard notices there's something very strange about the water that's falling. With a wicked grin, Blood Panther says he would never attack without being absolutely certain of victory. The villain reveals that the liquid is spider venom and can even take down a rank A, and the guards start to collapse. Desperate, the lead bodyguard yells for the young lady to run as the enemy charges in to attack. With a malicious smile, the villain rushes forward and lands a powerful punch on the girl's bodyguard. Next, he grabs the man by the neck and sarcastically praises him for his great loyalty. The gang leader then says that loyal protectors never get a happy ending and engulfs the man in flames, who screams in pain. Lying on the ground, the young woman watches in horror and calls out her friend's name as he's consumed by the fire. The scene then cuts to a modern house, showing the story is now focusing on another character. On a training field, our hero is getting ready to hone his skills with his shadow dagger. Using his teleport ability, the guy starts moving with impressive speed. He zigs and zags between the wooden dummies, leaving a trail of pure dark energy in his wake. With swift and precise movements, he unleashes a series of attacks against the training targets. In the blink of an eye, all the wooden dummies are completely sliced to pieces by his powerful strikes. The spirit then praises him, and the young man says he's a rank C now, and deserves a better nickname than Kiddo. Suddenly, his cell phone starts ringing, and he wonders if it's his friend Kyun Sayan calling him. While the spirit mocks the rank C, our guy answers the phone with a surprised look on his face. Consumed by rage, he slams his dagger into the ground with full force after hearing what was happening. On the phone screen, the villain appears, holding the girl hostage and taunting him to come rescue her. On the phone, the villain is holding our hero's friend by the hair and asks if this is who he's looking for. With his eyes glowing with pure rage, the main character furiously asks what the heck Blood Panther thinks he's doing. The villain says what he'll do depends on how important the girl is, and gives him two options, 1 billion or watch her suffer. With tears in her eyes, the young woman warns her friend not to listen because it's all a big trap. But our guy, his eyes glowing, agrees to pay the ransom and asks where the exchange for his friend will be. Blood Panther tells him to bring the money in 1 hour and to come alone, or the girl isn't leaving this place alive. When he hangs up, the spirit warns the young man not to go, because at his power level, he might not survive. But our hero replies that he can't abandon an ally, and that it's not yet decided who's going down in this fight. The scene then shows the large warehouse, where the final showdown between the two rivals is about to happen. The main character arrives at the location, and the villain praises his courage, asking where the money he requested is. Unfazed, the guy says that first things first, he needs to see if his partner is okay. With a mocking smile, the gang leader orders his henchmen to bring the young lady to him. At that moment, a massive crane hook begins to slowly descend from the ceiling of the dark warehouse. The main character looks up with an expression of surprise and concern on his face. Next, he sees his friend hanging from the hook, completely helpless and tied up by her hands. The girl is gagged and desperately tries to struggle free from the ropes binding her. Then our guy looks at her and taps his ear, telling her to open her secret storage space. The main character then throws a mountain of cash in front of the villains to pay his friend's ransom. One of the henchmen confirms the money is real, and the gang leader watches it all with a victorious smile. With the money delivered, the young man demands that the villain hold up his end of the deal and release the girl immediately, but the gang leader reveals he wasn't going to get rid of him before seeing the money, and now he won't be leaving here alive. Our hero then pulls out a detonator and says he knew from the start the enemy wouldn't keep his word. With one click, the money explodes in a bright flash of light, and our guy uses his teleport to get out of there. A gigantic explosion rips through the middle of the warehouse, engulfing the gang leader and all of his henchmen. Amidst the smoke and debris, the villain gets angry and wonders where the main character managed to escape to. Suddenly, our hero appears from behind and tries a surprise attack with his dagger, but the enemy manages to defend. The boss then launches a vortex of fire and asks if the young man really thinks he can win with these sneaky tricks. With a serious look, our guy replies that the air is full of dust and that one shouldn't play with fire like this. The villain is confused by the answer and seems to realize that something is very wrong with the current situation. Out of nowhere, a second explosion goes off, hitting the gang leader head on and sending the girl flying backward. Even gagged, the young woman looks at her friend with a mix of surprise and concern for what just happened. At that moment, a shadow blade slices through the rope holding the girl's hands, freeing her from danger. With that, a shadow tentacle rescues her from the fall, pulling her away from danger at the last second. Still gagged, the girl is completely surprised and has no idea what just happened. Our hero then puts her on the back of his wyvern, and the two of them fly far away from the burning warehouse. The villains watch them escape, and one of them comments that the guy has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, like the dragon in the portal. A henchman reports that more than half of their men are injured, and the other villain taunts him about the situation. Full of rage, the gang leader orders everyone who can still move to go after them and not let them escape. The villain then screams at his men to hurry it up and not let them get away no matter what. Already inside the tower, the girl starts to worry, warning that the Black Panther gang has managed to get in. But our MC with a grin says this is the perfect chance for those guys to help him solve a little problem. He then asks her and the dragon to hide first, because he's going to handle the rest. With that, the young man leaps down, telling her not to worry because he'll be totally fine. The entity then asks him if he left the entrance open on purpose just to use the gang. With a smirk, the guy confirms it, saying the rules never said he had to clear it alone. The creature calls him a smart cookie, but he reveals that the reward for the second level is just too tempting. Suddenly, a giant fireball slams into the door, catching the MC by surprise. Even so, the young man remarks that the Black Panther gang members are pretty cautious. The villain then appears with his goons, declaring that now Lee Yi has nowhere left to run. But with his hand cloaked in shadow energy, he asks why he would even need to run. The MC says he's already saved Kim Si-in and now has nothing left to worry about. And with a smile on his face, he says that now is a good time to finally settle the score with them. The gang leader laughs, says the young man has lost his mind, and tells his men not to be afraid and to attack, and that when they're done, he'll let his boys have some fun with the girl from the Kin family. With his eyes glowing, our MC admits it's true that he's outnumbered. He then calls everyone out to greet their newly arrived guests. At that, from behind the door, several sinister red eyes begin to appear in the darkness. With that, 3 massive beasts emerge and the young man welcomes them to the challenge. Seeing this, the gang's henchmen are completely stunned by the appearance of the creatures. The beasts then begin to attack the men, who scream for everyone to watch out. Suddenly, the Blood Panther directly attacks one of the MC's minions. The minion tries to block the blow, but the villain yells at him to stay out of business that isn't his. The creature then screams in pain as it's completely consumed by fire energy. The villain's attack then explodes, creating a massive fireball in the middle of the hall. The young man watches the scene and asks if the enemy really wants to use his strongest move. With that, he activates his Dark Metamorphosis skill. Transforming his energy into a sledgehammer, he says he's going to ramp up the enemy's hatred. He then yells for the fireball to explode and attacks with his new shadow weapon. The MC is thrown back by the force and notes that he can't underestimate the attacks of a B-ranker. With the explosion, the beasts now start fighting the gang's henchmen. The young man then joins his beasts to face the Blood Panther gang leader. The villain then taunts him, asking how many more attacks he can block in this state. Leaning on his sledgehammer, the MC, panting, says he only needs one more hit. With a smile and his eyes glowing blue, he tells the enemy to take a look around. The villain then realizes he's been completely surrounded by the shadow minions and the beasts. He looks around, completely shocked by what's happening around him. The MC then taunts the enemy, telling him to have fun with the beasts because he's leaving. The gang leader kicks one of the creatures and realizes he's been tricked by the kid again. With his eyes red with fury, he screams for all the beasts to get out of his way. The villain then unleashes a huge fire explosion to finish off the minions once and for all. Even so, the creatures continue to attack him, and he screams Lee's name. Completely blinded by rage, he swears he will tear the young man to pieces. Now in the central area of the second level, the MC asks if the entity isn't pulling his leg again. He questions if there's really an armor that can withstand A-rank attacks right in front of him. Suddenly, the young man stops walking and realizes something strange is nearby. He then sees a creature, and the entity explains that it's the guardian of the second level. The entity then asks the MC to help it give the guardian a proper burial after everything is over. With the guardian kneeling, the entity thanks the young man, who watches the scene in silence. The creature then says the armor is just ahead, and the two continue on their way. At that moment, the MC and the shadow entity are taken aback by something that has appeared. The two then see an armor floating in the air and look at it intently. The armor then asks if it is the shadow armor the entity spoke of. The young man thinks the armor is beautiful, but the entity thinks his enhancement is only level 2. She thinks that even at level 3, facing an A-rank armor would be really tough. The MC notices she's acting strange and asks what's wrong with her. The creature tells him to just grab the reward, and he thinks she's getting more and more emotional. The armor then moves towards the young man, who watches the scene, not understanding a thing. Suddenly, the armor grabs him by the neck, leaving the guy completely surprised. The armor calls him master and says it thought he would never return to it. The young man is shocked and wonders what the heck is going on at that moment. The armor says it never imagined its master would inhabit the body of a mere C-rank. The shadow entity then becomes furious with the armor and orders IT to stop immediately. The armor turns and questions the creature, asking who she thinks she is to give it orders. She explains that her soul sleeps within the armor, awaiting the return of her master. The entity says she has failed and that it will use her as a vessel for its own soul. At that moment, the MC screams in pain as the energy from the two entities begins to consume him. Our guy asks the entity if she can take down the enemy if he gives up control. The creature then asks if he isn't afraid she'll just take his body for good. With a smirk, the young man says she wouldn't have given his body back before if she could have actually controlled it. The entity then huffs, annoyed at the kid's audacity. And with that, our hero shouts and decides to hand over control to the shadow creature. His eyes glow intensely as the entity takes full control of his body. A huge burst of energy erupts and the two shadow beings begin to fight. The entity mocks the armor, saying her soul is weak and that she only has the strength of an A-rank. The armored being retorts that even being A-rank is more than enough to defeat her, as the system displays her status. The armor then asks in surprise if this is the shadow domain. The entity uses her shadow domain and lunges to attack the armor from above. The armor scoffs, saying she didn't expect the creature to have kept secrets from her. Wielding several shadow swords, the entity says she's kept more than one secret. The swords then strike at the armor, but she asks disdainfully what it even matters. With a giant sword, the armor says the kid's body can't handle a level 3 skill. The entity uses a teleportation skill to launch a surprise attack on her foe. She then moves at high speed and strikes the armor, who manages to defend against the blow. The armor is shocked, wondering what kind of skill she just used. With that, the two shadow beings trade blows, their blades clashing in midair. The enemy taunts her, saying she can't maintain this state for long. The creature asks if Lee is still holding up, and he says yes, that she can keep going. The armor laughs and says attacks of this level can't even scratch her defense. The entity then declares she's going to force the armor out and goes on an all-out offensive. The two clash again, causing a massive shockwave that shatters the ground. The armor and the creature then face off, ready for their next clash. The entity lands a powerful punch on the enemy, cracking part of her armor. She then follows up with a flurry of rapid punches to finish off her opponent. The creature says it's just a little more and preps a final blow to defeat the armor. With a grin on her face, she gets ready to deliver the finishing blow. The entity thinks that if they keep this up, Lee's soul and body will be destroyed by the overload. The armor mocks the entity for wasting this chance because of some useless creature. She then attacks the creature, asking when she became so pathetic. The entity becomes furious at the taunt and grits her teeth in anger. With that, the armor tells her not to blame her and prepares an attack to end it all. The shadow entity is completely taken by surprise by the armor's sudden attack. With that, she uses her powers and grabs the armor's arm, saying she's got it now. The creature then glares at the armor with a serious and determined look. She is furious and says she didn't expect to be betrayed by a dog she raised herself. The armor then breaks free and says it can finally return to a true life. The MC recovers and gets on guard for what's about to happen next. With a look of anger, the young man shouts the name of one of his attacks. The two entities then turn to the guy, who watches them intently. Seeing the danger, the shadow creature yells for the MC to get out of there. But he refuses to leave and attacks the armor, yelling for it to let the entity go. The armor finds the scene touching, saying that one is worried while the other can't use its power. With a look of contempt, she says the young man is just an ant who dares to attack her. The armor then attacks the MC, throwing him forcefully against a rock. Lying on the ground, the guy coughs, completely injured by the blow. The entity then yells at him, calling him a C-rank and telling him to get lost. With his eyes glowing with rage, he yells that from the very beginning, the entity treated him like a slave. He remembers that she forced him to fight otherworldly monsters to level up, and that at every step of the way he was forced to follow her orders without question. With his face full of hatred, the young man says that now, the decision to stay or go is his and his alone. With that, he screams that the choice is his, and charges forward to attack the armor with everything he's got. The guy says that just as he defeated the Blood Panther, he can also help take down this traitor. The armor scoffs and asks how long his body will hold out, and the entity calls him a fool. The MC furiously yells that it's none of their business and continues his assault. With a roar of fury, he throws himself forward, trying to land a hit on the armor. But in the middle of his attack, he realizes his body is breaking apart from the excess power. Even so, the young man doesn't give up and continues to attack the armor relentlessly. The armor taunts him, saying the creature the entity chose is adorable, but dumb as a rock. She then tells the entity to stop fighting because it's already over. The armor opens its arms and tells the creature to be a good source of nutrition for IT. With a wicked laugh, the armor prepares to absorb all of the entity's energy. The armor then laughs loudly as the shadow entity dissolves into a black puddle on the ground. But suddenly, a giant dark energy erupts from the puddle, enveloping the armored figure. The armor is completely shocked and wonders what in the world is happening. She then questions if this is an eternal night caused by the shadow domain. The armored figure says it's impossible because she hadn't finished refining the entity. At that moment, the armor is stunned, and a voice says it had already warned her. With his eyes glowing, the MC appears and swears he's going to eliminate her. The young man then uses his new power and attacks the armor with a giant blade of energy. The armor is completely shocked and can't believe what it's seeing. The system shows that he is now an enhancement level 3 C rank and has mastered the shadow domain. Afraid, the armored figure wonders how he managed to reach the 3rd level. The MC then explains that the domain's power comes from the energy of souls. The armor realizes that's why the entity was so afraid of this power. With a wicked smile, the young man asks what she is going to do without her armor. He then unleashes a powerful energy beam that hits the armor dead on. Even so, the armored figure manages to dodge the attack and goes for a counterattack. The MC furiously screams for her to get out of the armor right now. With a cry of rage, he continues to attack the armor without stopping. The guy then lands a direct hit that shatters part of the armored figure's armor. The armor scoffs, saying he is still just a C rank, and that her armor is A rank. With a smile, the young man says that if he can't break it from the outside, he'll change his tactics. He then prepares to attack again, and the armor calls him reckless. The MC then charges forward, and the armored figure tries to defend against the attack. With a smirk, he uses his shadow tendrils to grab the enemy. The armor can't believe what it sees, saying this is impossible. With that, the armored figure screams in pain as the shadow energy consumes it from the inside. Inside the armor, the Guardian also screams as it's forced out of its hiding place. A giant clone of the young man then pulls the Guardian's soul out of the armor. With the Guardian out, the armor shatters into several pieces and falls to the ground. The MC says so that's why he was hiding, and that the armor was absorbing the damage. Without its protection, the Guardian thinks that prolonging the fight will only make it weaker. He then tries to flee, but the young man stops him using his shadow chains. With a smile, the guy asks if he really thinks he's going to let him get away. The Guardian is then completely captured by the MC's chains. Trapped, he says that if the young man attacks him, he'll also get hurt in the process. But the guy remembers that souls are made of shadow energy. With that, the entity attacks, saying that now he has lost the armor's protection. The MC yells for the Guardian to become the fuel for his evolution. The entity warns that the enemy underestimated the kid's hunger for power, to which he tells her not to get cocky. With a smile, the Guardian asks if she thinks the guy will spare her afterwards. The enemy says that no living being can resist the test of desire as he's being absorbed. With his eyes glowing, the MC screams in pain, feeling the power flow through his body. He then unleashes an explosion of energy that cracks the ground and throws the entity far away. The shadow creature watches the scene, completely surprised by the display of power. Now in his new form, the young man says, "So, this is what it feels like to be a B rank." With a smile on his face, he looks at the fallen armor and whispers its name.